Chapter 855. Yun Zhongmu was calm, but the 10 chat channels of the 10 Guilds Alliance were in an uproar. The communication staff of the 10 guilds were extremely busy, and they didn't know what to report back to Yun Zhongmu. Yun Zhongmu was carefree, and he directly sent a message to them. Just tell me the results. The communication staff heaved a sigh of relief. At this moment, there were voices of reprimand in the chat. Some players thought that Yun Zhongmu was afraid and retreated. This was the behavior of a coward. Yun Zhongmu didn't want to see this, and he quietly waited for the results. There were tens of brothers who had been with him for a long time. They had been through many trials and tribulations since the start of the open beta. When Yun Zhongmu made this decision, the first thing he did was inform his group of brothers. What moved him was that none of his brothers doubted or questioned his decision. Each and every one of them expressed that they would support him to the end. They even insisted that they could not be separated, and that they must walk the road together in the future. Among Yun Zhongmu's brothers, there were 5 other guild leaders who wanted to leave with him. These people were the absolute core of the 10 Guilds Alliance. Yun Zhongmu could foresee that even if the 10 Guilds Alliance could keep its shell, it wouldn't be able to regain its former glory. He even had a feeling that the 10 Guilds Alliance would leave with him, and the others would leave. The guild leader had made up his mind, and he didn't participate in the discussion anymore. What could the players of the 10 Guilds Alliance say? Truthfully speaking, the only ones who truly cared about the 10 Guilds Alliance were Yun Zhongmu's group. Most of the others simply wanted to join the 10 Guilds Alliance because they saw how powerful the 10 Guilds Alliance was. Now that they heard that the 10 Guilds Alliance was about to disband, they were able to accept it. After all, there were still many people who wanted to continue the glory of the 10 Guilds Alliance. However, apart from Yun Zhongmu, there wasn't anyone in the 10 Guilds Alliance that could win the respect of all 10 guilds. It wasn't easy for him to think of one, but when he said it, he decided to leave with Yun Zhongmu. Fuck, that's it then. We'll do our own things from now on. The players in his guild didn't have any objections when a guild leader lost his temper. As a result, a series of system notifications rang out, and many of his guild members left on the spot. They were all Yun Zhongmu's diehard followers. With someone taking the lead, the other guilds didn't stand on ceremony. Withdrawal notifications popped up one after another. Of the 10 guilds, 6 of the guild leaders immediately withdrew. If the guild leader withdrew, it wouldn't necessarily disband the guild. However, someone had to apply for the position of guild leader within 7 days, and that person had to receive the support of more than half of the players. During this period, all guild affairs were suspended. Members could only leave, but not enter. If a guild leader was not elected after 7 days, the guild would automatically disband. Normally, vice guild leaders were relatively prestigious within the guild, so it was only natural that they would take over the position of guild leader. However, when everyone took a look, they discovered that of the 6 guilds, 4 had already resigned their vice guild leaders. Everyone was dumbfounded. On the spot, 2 guilds had already resigned their vice guild leaders, leaving behind only an empty shell. The remaining players could only stare at each other in shock. The players who had left the guild alliance immediately looked for a way out. After all, 4 of the guilds still had owners, and their levels weren't low. Moonlit City didn't have any powerful guilds at the moment, so any guild in the guild alliance had great potential. At this point, Cloud Twilight and the others had no idea what was going on. From the moment the first guild leader announced that the guild was disbanding, Cloud Twilight had already gotten his answer. After he left, the brothers who were willing to stay with him immediately followed suit. Without the guild channel and a bunch of noisy communicators, Cloud and Twilight's heart was at ease. He felt as if he could see the sky and the sea. He looked at the brothers beside him. There were still 142 people following him, all of whom he couldn't be more familiar with. Cloud Twilight couldn't help but sigh. The 10 Guilds Alliance was growing faster and stronger, but the distance between him and his brothers was growing further and further. Ever since the 10 Guilds Alliance had reached this scale, all of his friends seemed to be experts or guild leaders who weren't part of the guilds. On the other hand, there weren't any newcomers in his own guild. Old Cloud, what do you plan to do next? Tell us, someone said to Cloud Twilight. Eagle Group, I'm not done with them. Cloud Twilight roared. Good. I knew it. The crowd yelled. At this point, they no longer had a common channel, so they could only use their voices to vent their emotions. These people were undoubtedly the ones who understood Cloud Twilight the best. They had already guessed what he was thinking. Most of them had participated in the World War just now. They knew how difficult it was to deal with players with gaming organizations as their background. They also understood that even if Eagle Group fell, there would still be Eagle Group 2 and Eagle Group 3. Cloud Twilight leading a group of people to leave caused the 10 Guilds Alliance to disband. It seemed like an irresponsible escape, but in reality, it was the most responsible thing to do. This was because the current opponents were different from the past. If they continued to fight, the gaming lives of the 10 Guilds Alliance's players would be completely changed. Although Yun Jongmu said that they could negotiate and resolve this peacefully, even if they did that, it would only be for the sake of the people who stayed behind. He, Yun Jongmu, would definitely jump out and fight Eagle Group and Ingqi to the end. Just like when he fought against Bygone Era, the players of Moonlit City had all come to a compromise. Only he persisted in fighting Bygone Era. Although the current opponents were stronger, Cloud Twilight was still the same Cloud Twilight. What do we do now? Someone asked. The group of people's blood was boiling. They all had the same temperament as Cloud Twilight, and they completely admired his methods. Then let's all come up with a plan. Cloud Twilight was now relaxed. No matter how difficult the situation was, he could still face it in high spirits. Say, why don't we join Boss Sword Phantom's new guild? The first strategist, the famous talkative strategist among the Yin Zhongmu brothers, suggested as usual. However, this time his suggestion wasn't looked down on, nor was it ignored. Everyone was stunned. They looked at each other, and actually began to seriously consider this suggestion. This was the first time in the history of the first strategist strategizing. What does everyone think? Cloud Twilight asked. Those who understood Cloud Twilight immediately knew what he was thinking. For him to ask such a question, it meant that he was already tempted. He was already hesitating. Otherwise, if he didn't agree with the suggestion, he would have already scolded it. Cloud Twilight never pretended to be a democratic person. I'm fine with anything, Duan Yin said. In this group of brothers, Duan Yin could be considered second in command. Old Yin, why are you acting so indecisive? Just one word from you and we'll all follow you. Zhu Xian also spoke up. It was rare that he didn't randomly complain, but said something that everyone liked. That's right, Old Yin, you can make the decision. Everyone said in unison. What I'm saying is that this useless strategist has finally come up with a decent idea. Cloud Twilight said. Amidst the roars of laughter, everyone obviously understood what Cloud Twilight meant. If news of this spread out, the original 10 Guild Alliance might look down on them even more. However, these guys did whatever they wanted and didn't need to explain themselves. Why was it so heaven-defying to join? This was very clear. This was because those guys clearly wanted to compete with Eagle Group. So why did everyone have to do their own thing? They might as well just group up and fight. Moreover, there was a higher chance of success with those guys. After all, everyone wanted to cause trouble for Eagle Group, not give them PK points. Okay, I'll contact them now. Seeing that no one had any objections, even Zhu Xian, who was always messy, didn't make a mistake this time. Cloud Twilight was very happy and immediately contacted people. Sword Demon was in jail and couldn't be contacted, so the person Cloud Twilight contacted was Gu Fei. Join our guild? We can't right now, Sword Demon is still in jail. Gu Fei replied. I know, I'm just telling them to reserve a spot for us. Cloud Twilight said. How many people do you have? Gu Fei asked. At least 142, probably more than that. Cloud Twilight said this because some of his brothers were offline. He believed that these people would make the same decision as them. That's enough. Gu Fei looked at the guild interface and replied. It was very heaven-defying. Right now a level 4 guild could have 500 people, but they only had 100 people in total, so there were plenty of empty spots. Cloud Twilight was naturally very happy, especially when he saw how Gu Fei didn't ask them why, or how the 10 Guild Alliance was doing. At this time, Gu Fei was still wandering aimlessly in that unknown main city. He did not wander too far away from Ing Chi's warehouse. He wanted to bump into Ing Chi's movers again and cause trouble for him. Gu Fei's patience was unquestionable. If he wanted to do something, nothing could stop him. However, after wandering around for a long time, he didn't have any results. Gu Fei guessed that there wouldn't be any gains. So he used a teleport scroll and flew to Moonlit Night City. In a tavern in Moonlit Night City, the Han family young master and the other experts were resting. After a long journey, most of them actually didn't accomplish anything. In the end, Eagle Group successfully took back the warehouse. It could be said that it was a rather unsuccessful expedition. Although Gu Fei killed a few people, no one was satisfied with this result. A bunch of people drank silently, and no one spoke. At this time, they didn't know what Eagle Group's next move was, so there was nothing to discuss. Suddenly, someone rushed in from outside the tavern. Everyone looked towards the direction of the sound, and didn't pay much attention to it. Who would have thought that as soon as this person found a place to sit down, a voice could be heard? Did you know? The 10 Guild Alliance has disbanded. In Moonlit Night City, this news was as heavy as the players in Cloud City going around telling everyone that Qianli had gotten drunk and would no longer do wanted quests. This kind of news that everyone cared about spread like wildfire. After the dissolution of the 10 Societies Alliance, 4 of the original 10 guilds instantly existed in name only. 2 guilds were in the process of electing a new president, and their future was uncertain. The remaining 4 guilds had already begun to recruit people with great fanfare. Obviously, they wanted to continue their dominant position in Moonlit Night City. However, the 4 guilds clearly didn't have a boss like Yin Zhongmu, so it was impossible for the 4 guilds to be as close as one. No one would submit to another. It was just that a second ago, they were all brothers under the same banner, and the next second, they suddenly became the most direct competitors. This change was somewhat strange, and everyone felt a little awkward and couldn't accept it. As such, the competition began in secret. After the original guild leaders and vice-guild leaders of the 10 Guild Alliance left, they were all recruited by the 4 guilds. The news of the 10 Guild Alliance disbanding was also released by the 4 guilds. This was to quickly let the players of Moonlit Night City know about themselves. For a long time, the players of Moonlit Night City only knew of the 10 Guild Alliance, and only knew of their boss, Yin Zhongmu. Almost no one cared about which guilds were in the 10 Guild Alliance, and whether or not each guild had a guild leader. But now it was different. The 4 guilds had established their own guilds, and if no one knew who the guild leader was, it wouldn't be good for them to promote themselves. As such, the 4 guilds spared no effort in promoting themselves. They were just short of pulling on people's ears and telling them that they were the boss of Moonlit Night City. At this time, the player who rushed into the tavern to discuss the news with his friends was only the first to rush into the tavern. Then a second, a third, and others who received the news from their friends. In an instant, the entire tavern was in an uproar, and everyone began to discuss this topic. When the people of Cloud City heard this, they were naturally at a loss. When Yin Zhongmu returned, everything was fine. Why did the 10 Guild Alliance suddenly disband? Could it be that the guild leader ran far away, so there was a mutiny in the guild? Just as they were about to ask Yin Zhongmu about this, the tavern door suddenly opened again. It was Gu Fei who walked in. He immediately saw where everyone was, and while greeting them he shouted, "Yin Zhongmu just told me that he wants to join our guild." This wasn't just heard by the Han family young master and the others. The entire tavern instantly fell silent. Who was Yin Zhongmu? In Moonlit Night City, he was the equivalent of Qianli in Cloud City. When he was drunk, he was the scariest demon king. The 10 Guild Alliance had disbanded, but Yin Zhongmu didn't persist. He actually wanted to join another guild? No matter what, with Yin Zhongmu's fame, he could easily pull up a normal 5th or 6th guild. After a few seconds of silence, the players in the tavern began to whisper amongst themselves. They had already seen who Gu Fei's greeting was directed at, so they began to discuss who this group of people was. They were actually able to recruit someone as powerful as Yin Zhongmu, and whether or not they should seize this opportunity to hug his thigh. What's going on? When Gu Fei sat down, Brother Yu, whose gossipy soul had been ignited to the max, asked impatiently, "He told me that he wants to join us. There are over 100 people, and we have a lot of empty spots. Gu Fei said. That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking what happened to the 10 Guild Alliance. Why did it disband? Brother Yu said. The 10 Guild Alliance disbanded? I don't know. Gu Fei said. Fuck if it didn't disband, why would he join us? Brother Yu said. Gu Fei laughed. Him joining is his business. What does it have to do with whether or not the 10 Guild Alliance disbanded? Brother Yu was startled. From a logical point of view, Gu Fei was right, but when he saw that Gu Fei didn't seem to know anything, he immediately lost interest in talking to him. Should he just ask Yin Zhongmu? Would that be a good idea? Brother Yu was at a loss. He's coming. If you want to know, then ask him. When Gu Fei came over, he also made an appointment with Yin Zhongmu. Of course, Yin Zhongmu and the others would come over. When Gu Fei came over, he also invited Yin Zhongmu to meet him. Of course, Yin Zhongmu and the others would come over as well. They were going to discuss the plan to trample on the Eagle Party. Haha, you're all here? Yin Zhongmu walked over in high spirits. The entire tavern fell silent once more. Everyone thought that the 10 Guild Alliance disbanded, and that Yin Zhongmu, who had created and developed it, would be in great pain. However, at this moment, this guy seemed to be in high spirits, which made everyone confused. Everyone assumed that Yin Zhongmu, who had single-handedly created and developed the 10 Society Alliance, would be in great pain when the 10 Society Alliance disbanded. It was even possible that his hair would turn white. However, at this moment, this fellow seemed to be in high spirits. This made everyone exceptionally puzzled. Could it be that joining us will make one so excited that they will ignore all pain and sorrow? The Han family young master said. Even if you're so narcissistic, can you not bring us all in? The others protested. Yin Zhongmu walked over and sat down. He poured himself some wine and asked, What are you guys talking about? It's not just us, the entire tavern is talking about you. Brother Yu said. Not just us, the entire tavern is talking about you. Brother Yu said. Talking about me? About our 10 Guild Alliance? Yin Zhongmu said as he drank. Yeah, why did it suddenly disband? Brother Yu said. Haha, I'm tired. I said I don't want to do it anymore and directly left. In the end, those bastards were useless and disbanded just like that. Yin Zhongmu laughed. It's that simple? Brother Yu didn't believe it. Of course. Yin Zhongmu nodded his head. Yin Zhongmu would do something like not wanting to create more trouble for everyone, but he would never admit to having such thoughts even if he was beaten to death. In his eyes, saying such things would be a shameful thing. He was a pure man, so how could he have so many worries and misgivings? When is Boss Sword Demon coming out? We're waiting to join the guild. Yin Zhongmu's words made Brother Yu speechless, and he started to take the initiative. It's about tomorrow. The young master of the Han family replied. Who knows what those bastards from the Eagle Group will do? Yin Zhongmu said. The 10 Guild Alliance disbanded. This news traveled so quickly that they probably heard about it. This way, I really don't know what Eagle Group will do. Han family young master said. Think of something. We can't let those bastards be so arrogant. Yin Zhongmu said. At this moment, the tavern door was pushed open once again. Two people walked in shoulder to shoulder and swept their gaze around the tavern. One of them asked in a clear voice. Is Boss Yin Zhongmu here? Who is it? Yin Zhongmu heard someone call him and turned his head. Gu Fei also raised his head and smiled. It was Duo Mu and Mudua. These professional reporters were too much of a paparazzi. The news had just spread, and they had already come looking for them. These guys were probably big customers of the studio's teleportation scrolls. Wherever there was news, they would quickly rush over. How could they not have teleportation scrolls? Duo Mu and Mudua looked around and saw that there were quite a few famous people here. They smiled and walked over. Yo, you're all here. As reporters, they paid attention to building a good relationship with famous people. After all, they were the ones who created the news. As long as a level 10 noob didn't destroy a main city, no one would bother to interview them. Chapter 856. Brother Yu's eyes lit up. He loved gossip, but as a reporter, he was a professional at finding and creating gossip. There was still a difference between an amateur and a professional. And so, brother Yu brought Duo Mu and Muto over in a friendly manner, and shoved them in front of Yin Zhongmu. Yin Zhongmu retreated to the side, ready to listen to the backstory that he couldn't get. The others were clearly lacking in the spirit of gossip. For example, Gu Fei, who had the least interest in gossip, had already gone to ask Han family young master about the next step of the plan. Han family young master, on the other hand, was focused on his wine glass and wasn't very interested in the interview. Yu Tian Shenming and Unscathed in Battle discussed whether or not Muto was a beauty. In the end, Fireball was also attracted over to join the discussion. Jiannan and the others were calculating what kind of fees they would have to pay if they were to be interviewed one day. Drifting's face was nonchalant, as if he had seen this kind of situation before. On the other hand, Savior of Cowards was the complete opposite of Drifting. He never knew that there were reporters in the game. Even though they weren't interviewing him, he was very curious about the situation. Yin Zhongmu was in a good mood, and didn't have any negative feelings towards the two paparazzi. However, after asking a few questions, Brother Yu sighed, and Duo Mu and Muto felt like they were being teased. Clearly, although he was in a good mood, Yin Zhongmu didn't cooperate at all. He was completely messing with them, as if he didn't want to reveal his true thoughts and intentions. Duo Mu and Muto sighed. This first-hand interview was very difficult. It seemed like the report this time would lack a lot of depth. However, the two didn't force the issue. They hurriedly said their goodbyes to the celebrities and left. Yin Zhongmu didn't get much from the interview, but there were still a lot of people that could be interviewed. Duo Mu and Muto continued to busy themselves. Yin Zhongmu waited for the two to leave, and immediately returned to the table. He wanted to continue discussing the issue of Eagle Group with everyone. I've said it before. U10 will disband, so it's impossible to predict what Eagle Group's next step will be. Of course, they'll continue to cause trouble for you. Han family young master said. After Ing Chi takes inventory, they'll need a new warehouse. Perhaps they'll be responsible for moving the goods? Yin Zhongmu guessed. That's a possibility. This must be done by someone who is absolutely reliable. Since Eagle Group can enter and leave the warehouse as they wish, they should be trusted. However, resources are the most important thing for the studio. I believe that under the circumstances where the conditions permit, they will not be stingy with scrolls. Han family's young master said. Sigh, if only we knew where their new warehouse is. Yin Zhongmu couldn't wait to fight with the Eagle Group. Let's just wait and see. Many things have happened today. The Han family young master said. Everyone present nodded. Although many people didn't do much in the details today, the game content over the past 2 days had been extremely rich. Now that it seemed like they had finally entered a full break, everyone let out a small sigh of relief. Of course, the busiest ones right now were Muto and Muto. Ever since the conflict between the 10 Society Alliance and Image Studio started, both of them had been paying attention to the news. They wanted to report on the matter, but they didn't expect the situation to develop so quickly. In less than a day, the 10 Society Alliance had already announced its disbandment. Duo Mu and Muto didn't dare to delay any longer and hurriedly charged into the game to conduct a direct interview. Who would have thought that the main character, Cloud Twilight, would be an impenetrable fortress? The two of them returned empty-handed. After that, the two of them walked around Moonlit Night City. Through their connections, they finally interviewed some other members of the 10 Societies Alliance, including some of the original higher-ups of the 10 Societies Alliance. Of those who remained in their original guilds, 90% expressed extreme dissatisfaction towards Yin Zhongmu and his group of brothers for leaving their guilds in a hurry, which led to the dissolution of the 10 Guilds Alliance. However, Duo Mu and Mudwa, who prided themselves on their professionalism, didn't want their words to be the law. Although they couldn't directly ask Yin Zhongmu's thoughts, they could objectively analyze why Yin Zhongmu said that he was tired through a lot of details. As for what happened during the struggle with Image, the two reporters couldn't find out no matter how hard they searched around Moonlit Night City. Thus, the two of them decided to make a series of articles. They would first report on the current situation, then start digging for the truth from the beginning. That night, when the number of players online was at its peak, The news of the disbandment of the Ten Society Alliance was reported fiercely by Duo Mu and Muto. At this time, even Yin Zhongmu was waiting for the two's report. When he saw their analysis of him after beating around the bush, he couldn't help but sigh. Damn, these two guys really have some tricks up their sleeves. Duo Mu Mudwa was indeed a veteran online gaming reporter with a keen sense of smell. Although Yin Zhongmu didn't cooperate with them, their analysis of his intention to leave the guild was pretty close. The two of them sincerely pointed out that Yin Zhongmu must have felt the immense pressure of the studio's strength in the fight against Image Studio. Most people in the Ten Societies Alliance might not be aware of this pressure, but Yin Zhongmu, who had been fighting on the front lines, was keenly aware of it. He realized that he had no chance of winning, so he resolutely led his group of brothers to leave the Ten Societies Alliance. His true intention was probably to use this method to take away the hatred from Image Studio, so that more players in the Ten Societies Alliance wouldn't be involved in this whirlpool. Yin Zhongmu, the leader of the largest guild in the parallel world, as expected of a responsible boss. You guys talk too much. Looking at the report, Yin Zhongmu was half happy and half worried. He wasn't happy because of Duo Mu Mudwa's positive report. In fact, this was what he was worried about. How could Duo Mu Mudwa immediately capture Yin Zhongmu's location when he came online? In fact, this was more or less because of Yin Zhongmu's secret cooperation. The news of the Ten Societies Alliance disbanding would instantly spread in Moonlit Night City, but for the other main cities, there wasn't much attention and communication. It was very likely that they would only find out after a long time. Therefore, Yin Zhongmu needed to borrow an outsider's mouth to spread this news as quickly as possible, so that more people would know that the Ten Societies Alliance had disbanded. Why did it disband? Without anyone analyzing, anyone could guess that it was definitely related to the Ten Societies Alliance's recent entanglement with the studio. With the studio's great power, it was believed that a lot of players would feel uneasy. The feeling of the fox mourning the death of the rabbit would cause them to sympathize with the Ten Societies Alliance. If Ingqi Studio or the Eagle Group continued to attack the old members of the Ten Societies Alliance, they would definitely incur the wrath of the public. This was something that the studio absolutely wouldn't dare to do. They were far more concerned about their image in the eyes of the players than guilds. Yin Zhongmu didn't dare to determine whether Ingqi Studio had too much personal hatred towards them. He was worried that even if the guild disbanded, Ingqi would still not give up. Therefore, he secretly cooperated with the others to spread the news of the Ten Societies Alliance's disbandment throughout the parallel world as fast as possible, hoping to use the public's mouth to stop Ingqi from making a move. Things went quite smoothly. Duo Mu Mudwa's report was undoubtedly the fastest way to spread news in the game. Only these two fellas were a bit too talkative. Yin Zhongmu didn't say anything, yet they were able to accurately guess his thoughts. This was the same as exposing Yin Zhongmu's objective to Ingqi. Even if they know, I believe they can only let it go, right? I hope they can maintain their rationality. Yin Zhongmu couldn't help but think as he closed the post. At this time, Ingqi Studio's plan was as they had guessed. 5 knights continued to do inventory, while the people from the Eagle Party started to help transport the goods. They transferred all the inventory to the new warehouse that Unparalleled Wonder had found after running around for a whole day. For safety reasons, they used teleportation scrolls to transport the goods by air. However, there were too many goods in the warehouse, and they had to sort them out before they could be transported. The people from the Eagle Party were no longer the powerful experts they once were. They were all covered in dust and looked like laborers. Boss! At this time, a player from the third group suddenly came online. The Eagle Party still had 3 groups working in shifts. The poor third group had been called to do this and that for the entire day, so they were allowed to have a good rest. However, this time, it was the third group that took the initiative to contact Forever. What is it? Forever was also one of the laborers. The Ten Societies Alliance has disbanded. The person who came up was the leader of the third group, Brother Chiao. Oh. Where did this news come from? Forever asked. The whole world knows. It's a report from Mumu Duo. Looking at the time, it seems that after we took back all the warehouses, those guys went back, and then disbanded not long after, Brother Chiao said. What about the process? The process is simple. Yunzhongmu brought a bunch of people and forcefully left. You could say that it was a violent disbandment, Brother Chiu said. This guy. Forever sighed. What do we do next? Brother Chiu asked. We took their money and did the work. We don't need to think about what to do. When Forever said this in the chat, many people in the Eagle Party felt a wave of sadness. Even though these semi-professional players had a much better life than most professional players, this feeling of helplessness was something that most professional players didn't have. Many professional players worked for themselves. If they didn't want to do the work or accept the missions, they could just give up. But what about them? Their boss, Unparalleled Wonder, had given them a job. Even if they had to fight 4,000 people, they had to find a way to do it. When they died, the first thing the boss cared about was whether their equipment was dropped or not. Then I'll be logging off first. Brother Chiu felt a little dispirited when he heard Forever say this. That's right. It had nothing to do with them. Why did they have to worry about it? These workers really had professional ethics. Everyone continue. Forever called out. The conversation with Brother Chiu was in the mercenary channel. The players in the Eagle Party who were online already knew about this news, but they didn't say anything. In fact, most of them did not have any hatred towards the 10 Societies Alliance, but after this journey, the number of people who hated 1,000 miles drunk suddenly increased. The night passed peacefully. The next morning was the season when the all-nighters went to sleep, so there wouldn't be any problems. After noon, the OP players from Cloud City and Night City went online one after another. They all rushed to the same place, Cloud City's dungeon. This was because they knew that their guild leader, Sword Demon, would be released around this time. With 42 hours in prison, Sword Demon had undoubtedly set a record in this parallel world. But another record was even more impressive. During these 42 hours, Sword Demon hadn't gone offline at all. 100 Generations of Statecraft and Flaming Jacket were both ashamed. 100 Generations of Statecraft had 19 PK points, while Flaming Jacket had 17. The two of them had been imprisoned for 38 and 34 hours respectively. But because they were still offline to eat, drink, and sleep normally, they lost. They were surpassed by Sword Demon. Seeing that the recorder was about to leave, the two of them still held hands and sent Sword Demon off in the dungeon with tears in their eyes. You guys should come out early too. The moment they were teleported out of the dungeon, Sword Demon encouraged the two of them. The weather was good and the sunlight was dazzling. This made Sword Demon, who had been in the dark dungeon for 42 hours, a little confused. He squeezed his eyes hard and took a long time to adapt to the light. Then he saw clearly in front of him. Under the stone steps of the dungeon door, there was a crowd of people. Hasn't the crisis been resolved? Sword Demon was startled. He was about to reach for his dagger, but soon several familiar faces flashed in front of him. You're out. Brother Yu wasn't good at anything, but he was pretty good at talking. You've worked hard. Unscathed in battle patted him on the shoulder. This belongs to you. Yu Tianshunming handed over a silk banner. Sword Demon took it and looked at it. There were 4 big words embroidered on it. Dungeon Vanguard. Sword Demon didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but he knew that this kind of thing couldn't be produced in the game. It was definitely handmade by players, and the price wasn't cheap. He really didn't know whether to keep it or throw it away. He looked to the side. Gu Fei, Han family young master, these old comrades were all there. Jian Nanyu drifting, and all the new comrades who joined during the city war were also there. Even Water Depth and Lu Ke looked at him with a smile. What surprised him even more was that he actually saw Cloud Twilight. Ha 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 ha. As expected of Boss Sword Demon. If you want to stay in prison, you stay for 42 hours, and you don't even go offline once. You don't even waste a minute. Cloud Twilight saw Sword Demon's gaze and took the initiative to greet him. Sword Demon wouldn't forget people after killing them like Gu Fei. The experience in Moonlit Night City had left a deep impression on him. He immediately recognized that it wasn't just Cloud Twilight, but many of the people behind him. They were all hot-blooded brothers who had been with him at that time. Boss Sword Demon, we're here to join you. Please don't look down on us. Cloud Twilight called out loudly. What's wrong? Sword Demon didn't understand. Heh, our 10-guild alliance has been disbanded. My brothers and I thought that only you, Boss Sword Demon, are worth joining. Aren't we here now? If Cloud Morning's words were spoken by anyone else, they would definitely feel that he was being arrogant. However, this was Cloud Morning, the boss of the most powerful guild in the game. 99% of the players believed that even if his guild went bankrupt 100 times, he would still establish his own guild again. No one would have thought that he would actually join another guild. The guild that he joined was really subconsciously considered to be very amazing. What happened? Sword Demon clearly didn't know too many things. Come. Let's find a place to sit down and talk slowly. There are so many people gathered here just to specially welcome you. Brother, you came out to maintain the situation. But Sword Demon hesitated for a moment, but still said, I'm so sleepy. I want to go offline and sleep. Everyone was stunned. Everyone originally thought that if they could survive for 42 hours, they wouldn't mind hanging on for another 1 or 2 hours. However, they didn't expect that Sword Demon, who had just come out of prison, also couldn't wait to go offline and rest. In fact, Sword Demon was just stubborn in his heart. He couldn't sit in prison cleanly, and it wouldn't be easy for him to go offline either. Therefore, he gritted his teeth and did it all in one breath. At this moment, his whole body was relaxed. It was a bit like Cloud Twilight had just been freed from the 10-guild alliance. Once people relaxed, naturally sleepiness and tiredness attacked. Then hurry up and go rest. Brother, you didn't know what to say. 42 hours of not going offline to rest. Actually, it was more than that. 42 hours were just the time in prison. Before that, Sword Demon was also active in the game. This way, it was easily more than 50 hours. Therefore, he was a person who hadn't gone offline to rest for 50 hours. Who would dare to persuade him not to go offline to rest and continue to celebrate with everyone that was completely unimportant? Alright, then I'll go offline first. If there's anything, let's talk later. Sword Demon patted Cloud Twilight. Have a good rest. Cloud Twilight smiled. After Sword Demon left, a large group of people originally wanted to crowd around him. However, how many in the game could keep up with Sword Demon's speed? Even Gu Fei couldn't do it. Even Sword Demon had now dropped 2 levels. After a while, only the afterimage of Sword Demon was left in everyone's eyes. Looks like he's sleepy. Unscathed in battle nodded. Nonsense. Yutian Shenming looked at him with disdain. Who was the one who said they wanted to come over and do this? Gu Fei asked. No one dared to answer. This was Qianli's drunken question. If the answer wasn't satisfactory, what would they do if he killed them? Disperse. Brother Yu waved his hand. With a bang, everyone dispersed. There are 2 more in prison. Yutian Shenming reminded. They're sleeping well, but this isn't worthy of us welcoming them. Brother Yu said. That's right. Amidst a chorus of agreement, the main characters also dispersed. At this moment, no one had anything substantial to do. Cloud Twilight had already brought everyone to Cloud City. They were just waiting for Sword Demon to come online, so that everyone could join the guild. On Against the Will's side, the recruitment work continued. Yin Xiang was still a very reliable and capable person. When the elites were not around, she managed the recruitment work well. But unexpectedly, after the elites went out for a round, the 10 Clubs Alliance disbanded. President Cloud Twilight directly brought a large group of people to seek shelter. Yin Xiang was completely convinced. An expert was an expert. The gap was a gap. Butterfly knot. Sword Demon is finally released. Chapter 857. After all, Sword Demon's heart was in the game. This nap was just a short break. After about 3 or 4 hours, he crawled back into the game, scaring the experts who were still online. Sword Demon asked about everything that happened during the time he was offline. For a guy who loved online games so much, missing out on so many exciting shows, Sword Demon was actually quite disappointed. Forever. When he heard this name, Sword Demon's reaction was the same as when he first heard this name. Han Family Young Master Shueishan, and he confirmed it again. And this time, he already had an accurate answer. Shueishan was a little impatient. That's right, forever, that bastard. How is he now? Sword Demon asked. He's too arrogant. Even someone's arrangements were fooled by that guy. Shueishan's expression was very interesting when he mentioned this, perfectly reflecting the complex conflict in his heart. Seeing someone being schemed against, he was very happy. However, the person who schemed against this person was also someone that he hated the most. He was looking forward to seeing this person suffer a setback. In the battle between these two people, no matter who won or lost, Shui was half happy and half worried. It was really hard for him. Han family young master, on the other hand, acted as if nothing had happened. His face was so calm that it made people wonder if Shueishan was making this up. Everyone secretly said that this was a selective amnesia caused by narcissism. In Han family young master's memory, he was probably still a meticulous person who never lost 100 battles. Every one of them had a story in their heart about the fight with the Eagle Group. Shueishan's story was lonely. From the beginning to the end, he was always on the lookout. It wasn't easy for him to participate in the group operation, but he only had time to say 2 lines before it was over. And there were even more people who were more lonely than Shueishan. They didn't even have lines from the beginning to the end. Gu Fei was, of course, the most substantial. However, Gu Fei had already gone offline to rest. No one could tell him how he killed so many people. At this time, the narrator could only say that Qianli killed so-and-so, so-and-so, so-and-so in a drunken stupor. What about now? At the end of the story, he had already been released from prison. The Sword Demon was eager to find his role. The current situation is unclear. We still don't know what Ing Chi and the Eagle Group's next move is, so we'll wait and see. Han family young master said. What if there's no change? Should we take the initiative again? Shueishan asked. Us. Who are you? I say, are you guys going back to Shade Tree City or not? Are you two going on a honeymoon right after throwing your guild aside? Don't you have any sense of responsibility? Han family young master said. Is that any of your business? Deepwater said disdainfully. Boss Yun, what do you think? Sword Ghost turned his head to ask Yin Zhongmu's opinion when he saw the two of them starting to argue. I don't dare to call you Boss Yin, just call me Old Yin. Yin Zhongmu first smiled and said, then put forward his own opinion. I think Ing Chi and the Eagle Group won't let this go so easily. The dissolution of the 10 Societies Alliance should let them clearly see who is really making things difficult for them. They won't entangle with the other members of the 10 Societies anymore. Next, I think their target will completely turn to us, which is Cloud City. However, they are still a studio after all. And their main goal is to make money. If they want to reconcile, I think it won't be too difficult. It's up to Boss Sword Demon to decide. Speaking of which, they won't let this go. Most likely because they know that we will continue to cause trouble for them. If they knew our attitude, they would definitely be happy to keep the peace. Yun Zhongmu's words could also be seen as a test of Sword Demon's attitude towards this matter. Yun Zhongmu would definitely bring his brothers and Ing Chi's studio to continue causing trouble. However, Sword Demon was also a guild leader, and he had to be responsible for the many guild members. Yun Zhongmu, who was experienced, understood that Sword Demon was in a difficult position. Therefore, he didn't start discussing with Sword Demon how to fight against Ing Chi and the Eagle Group. Instead, he honestly analyzed the situation for Sword Demon. If Sword Demon chose to keep the peace, then there was no need for Yun Zhongmu and the others to join in. Sword Demon didn't disappoint Yun Zhongmu at all. After hearing this, he smiled slightly. Since things have come to this, reconcile? They are willing, but we can't. Our game isn't for money, but we still got schemed against by them. Of course, we have to return the favor. This is what our game is after. Ha ha ha, Boss Sword Demon, well said. Yin Zhongmu understood Sword Demon's attitude, and was very happy. At the end of the day, this matter was caused by the studio. Sword Demon was a righteous person, but he wasn't someone who wouldn't retaliate. Ing Chi's scheme made many players pay for it. Muyin Guild, Black Alliance, drinking and singing, and even the 10 Guilds Alliance, although they had different reasons, it was all because of Ing Chi that they ended up in this situation. When the Sword Ghost was in prison, Ing Chi was slapped forcefully. However, the Sword Ghost had a great career, so it seemed that the slap was not enough. The sword ghost continued to slap back, so the slaps had to continue. Compromise? Yin Zhongmu wouldn't do it, but how could Sword Demon? In comparison, Sword Demon and Yin Zhongmu's intentions were closer. They wanted to exchange blows with Ying Qi. As for the Han family young master, Deepwater, and the others, their attention was slightly diverted after Forever appeared. Boss Sword Demon, let us join. Yin Zhongmu could finally completely join in. Very OP. Okay. The guild leader, Sword Ghost, nodded. Cloud Twilight and his group of brothers then joined in. Very overpowered. At this moment, the guild had around 200 people. It was a small scale. However, after experiencing a series of baptisms of war, Cloud Twilight and his brothers' levels were rather dismal. At this time, Yin Xiang took the application files that she had worked hard to organize and reported to Sword Demon. Guild leader, these are the players who are quite strong. However, they are only quite strong. Compared to everyone here, they can't be considered experts. Yin Xiang said helplessly. Comparing oneself to others was infuriating. Experts were everywhere in the game. Yin Xiang, who had graduated from this school, could also be considered an expert. However, she didn't even dare to raise her head in this room. This was under the circumstances that Gu Fei wasn't here. If Gu Fei was here, everyone in the room would be too embarrassed to raise their heads. This was pressure. Sword Demon looked through the application files that Yin Xiang had organized. In reality, he didn't really like this method of recruiting people. In the past, guild members were all friends that they met in the game. Everyone had similar interests, so they joined the guild. However, this was the result of many people's hard work. Sword Demon didn't have the heart to reject it. He just felt that this wasn't a special time for a city war. So this method of recruiting people wasn't necessary. Sword Demon was still thinking when Yin Xiang said, "Guild leader, I think we should slowly develop. There's no need to rush and recruit people to strengthen the guild." Oh, you think so too? Seeing that there was someone who thought the same as him, Sword Demon was very pleased. Of course, there's no need to recruit people like this. We're just doing this to make our guild more famous. Look at us right now, including Yin Zhongmu and the others. We have around 200 people. The guild is only level 4, but many people think that we are the strongest guild in Cloud City. This is called influence. Han family young master said. Water Depth wanted to refute, but he had to admit that this was the truth. In terms of numbers, it was a very small guild, but this kind of public recruitment caused even Deepwater to be a little jealous. Then what about these people? Yin Xiang said in a daze. We'll pick the elites from the elites. Han family young master said. At this time, the kind Sword Demon didn't have the heart to openly recruit people. In the end, it was just a show and a waste of so many people's feelings. He flipped through the application forms and was speechless. Yin Zhongmu could see the sword ghost's hesitation and difficulty, so he said, "Now that we have a troublesome opponent like Ying Qi, I think we can put the recruitment on hold for now." And that's the only way. Let's put the recruitment on hold for now. Sword Demon said. The people who want to join the guild are sending in applications like crazy. Those who want to join, I think they've all sent in applications. Now it's time for us to sort things out. Yin Xiang smiled bitterly. Thanks for your hard work. Sword Demon didn't know what to say. He wasn't a person who was good with words. We can't just wait around for Ying Qi and Eagle Group. I think we should think of a way to take the initiative to grasp the situation. Yin Zhongmu suggested. I'll have Yin Ting's people pay attention to the movements in the studio circle. Han family young master's tone made it seem like Yin Teng's studio was his little brother. In the game, I visited the city over there and learned a bit about Eagle Group. But right now we don't need them. They're busy moving goods, right? Brother, you said. 100 main cities. These people's range of action is a bit exaggerated. It really isn't easy to grasp. Everyone, try to use the resources of your friends. Han family young master said. Actually, there's a person we can use. Drifting, who usually didn't speak much, suddenly spoke up. Use. Despicable. Yu Tianshiming was already starting to look down on him. There were so many internal conflicts that Yin Zhongmu couldn't take it all in. Yin Zhongmu could also see that these were real conflicts and not just jokes between friends. Who is it? Brother Yu ignored Yutian Shenming and asked Drifting. Duo Mumudwa. Drifting said the name, and everyone suddenly understood. Duo Mumudwa's identity was special. When they wanted to find someone, they could use their connections, and sometimes even get support from the game company. After all, if there were more interesting reports like this, it would make the game more interesting. This was something that the game company was happy to see. With this kind of free publicity, they only needed to provide some technical support. Why not? Duo Mumudwa is now reporting on the conflict between Ten Society Alliance and Yingqi. I think everyone has seen it. It's even been serialized. If they continue to dig like this, they might be able to grasp the others' movements that we want to know, Drifting said. But how are we going to get information from them? That's a problem. I think Duo Mumudwa is quite professional. Maybe they'll come into contact with some secrets, but most likely they won't sell it, right? After reading Duo Mumudwa's recent report, Yin Zhongmu had a good impression of this group of reporters. Well, we need to plan. Drifting smiled. You have an idea? Yin Zhongmu asked. What a despicable smile. Yu Tianshengming sighed and looked at him in disdain. Not yet, but this is a breakthrough. Everyone think of an idea, everyone, Drifting said. That night, some of the most talented players were using their brains to work, while the members of the Eagle Party were working through the night. That wasn't the end of it. At dawn, when most people went offline to rest, the members of the Eagle Party were still working in shifts. Forever was in charge of Team 1. At night, he was replaced by Team 3. When he woke up and went online, it was Team 2's turn. Their job was to put things in their pockets. The four of them huddled together, teleported scrolls, and repeated the process. In comparison, Five Nights' inventory work was much more complicated. It was fine if it was stackable items. After all, it was a game, and the numbers of each group could be seen at a glance. What was more complicated was the equipment. Even if they were exactly the same, he had to count them one by one. 5 Nights counted through the night until his eyes were tired and his waist was tired. When Forever's group changed shifts and went online, it was just in time for 5 Nights to finish another warehouse. He really couldn't take it anymore. After asking Forever's group to move the goods, he went offline to rest. Forever and the others didn't say anything and just quietly did what they were doing. After a few rounds, they saw a system notification that their boss, Unparalleled Genius, was online. Forever, where are you? Unparalleled Genius contacted Forever immediately. Big Warehouse, Forever replied. Big Warehouse was the name they had given to the new warehouse. Who knew how many scrolls Unparalleled Genius had on him? They would arrive soon. And Forever was already waiting. The 10 Guild Alliance disbanded. You already know, right? Unparalleled Genius said. I know. Forever had gone to read Duo Mumudwa's post before he went to sleep. What do you think is going on? Unparalleled Genius said. The analysis in the report is quite clear. Forever said. Do you agree with Duo Mumudwa's analysis? Unparalleled Genius asked. Forever nodded. So Yin Zhongmu disbanded the 10 Guild Alliance because he's determined to cause trouble for us. Unparalleled Genius frowned. I'm afraid so. And there's news that Yin Zhongmu brought some people with him and joined Cloud City. They're very overpowered. The 10 Guild Alliance had disbanded, but some of the informants Forever had bribed were still around. Yin Zhongmu's defection was very overpowered. This was something he did publicly in the tavern, and it quickly spread throughout Moonlit Night City. Sigh. Unparalleled Genius sighed. It's not good to keep fighting like this. Why don't you go to Cloud City and look for them to see if there's any possibility of reconciliation? Me? Forever smiled bitterly. Wouldn't it be adding fuel to the fire if he went to those people to reconcile? Forever could already imagine the faces of some people who hated and mocked him. Butterfly not. I haven't been in a good state these days. I seem to be in a state of fatigue. What do you guys think? Chapter 858. Privately, Everlasting would definitely be mocked and looked down on. Publicly, he would be mocked and looked down on. So what could Everlasting do? So privately, Everlasting didn't want to go, but publicly he couldn't. In the face of his boss Hope, Everlasting had no choice but to say no. Why? Matchless Wonder was confused. In his heart, Everlasting was a good comrade. He would accept any task his boss gave him, even if it was difficult. He would always try his best, and even if he couldn't succeed, he had never rejected a task before. Of course, Matchless Wonder wouldn't make a request like, pluck the moon down. Whatever Eternal wanted to do was within his capabilities. For example, in this negotiation, Matchless Wonder felt that it was beneath him to negotiate with a bunch of thugs, so he wanted to hire a thug to replace him. Who would have thought that Eternal would reject him? This was something that Matchless Wonder couldn't understand. You might have forgotten, but I said that I'm old friends with them. It's just that we didn't have a good relationship. If I go, even if there's a chance, it won't happen, Everlasting explained to his boss. Matchless Wonder was forgetful, but he seemed to remember that Everlasting had mentioned that he was old friends with them. He didn't know if this was true or not, but since Everlasting had already said it, he could only nod. Then who do you think is suitable? Everlasting knew Matchless Wonder's thoughts, and he obviously didn't want to go. The only two people who were smart were Five Nights and Everlasting. Between the two of them, one had a new grudge, and the other had an old one. If they went, they would definitely be eaten alive. Everlasting thought about it and said, let Yang go. Then let him go. Although Gai Shiqiang didn't know everyone in the Eagle Group, he knew Yang. After all, he was the leader of Team 2. When Team 2 was on duty, Gai Shiqiang would contact Yang whenever he needed help. Then I'll go get him, Everlasting said, and Team 2 went on a break. Go, tell him to hurry, Matchless Wonder urged. He was a little anxious over the past few days. Everlasting went offline, and not long after, he entered the game with Yang. Yang seemed to know what he needed to do, and as soon as he came online, he sent Matchless Wonder a message, asking if there was anything he needed to pay attention to. Analyze the pros and cons, no one will benefit from this. Matchless Wonder said. What if they want something? Yang asked. I'll be here. Let me know about the situation from time to time. I'll give you an answer if you have any requests, Matchless Elite said. Yang understood. Even though he said he was going to negotiate, he was still being controlled by his boss. However, he didn't know who he was. Yang, he said. Yang, but he didn't Yang. He couldn't get in touch with his friend's method, so he could only write an email. But now he couldn't figure out who the person in charge was. The guild leader was Sword Demon, but apparently he was in jail. Cloud Twilight had already left the 10 Guild Alliance and joined this group of people, so he shouldn't be the boss anymore. Who should he send the letter to? Yang thought for a while and wrote a bunch of letters. He sent a letter to everyone he knew, including the famous masters of the elite group, Drifting, Yunzhongmu, and so on. He didn't miss any of them. After sending the letter, Yang started to wander around Cloud City. He hadn't been to this city before, but the forums all said that Cloud City was a place of miracles. Although the series of miracles were all produced by the same group of people, for such a group of famous experts to be sent to this main city when it was randomly spawned, this coincidence was already the greatest miracle. Is it really that amazing? Yang mumbled as he walked around, waiting for the system notification to reply to his mailbox. On Against the Heavens side, a bunch of people continued to discuss the topic of multi-tree Mudo. Yutian Shenming and Unscathed in Battle came up with a few brainless ideas, but after being looked down on by everyone, they finally shut up. Brother Yu, who loved to observe, noticed that Drifting hadn't said a word during this whole process. His expression was weird, so he quietly moved next to Drifting and patted him. You actually had an idea, right? Everyone's eyes instantly focused on Drifting. Let's hear everyone's opinions first. Drifting wasn't in a hurry. Stop nagging. If you had an idea, why didn't you say it earlier? Yutian Shenming had come up with 2 ideas, but they were looked down on. Now he was filled with anger. He was waiting for someone to look down on. If it was Drifting, then it would be killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Multi-tree Mudo is really famous in the game circle, Drifting said. No shit. Yutian Shenming had already started. But there aren't many people who have actually seen them. Bullshit. I've seen everyone in this room. Yutian Shenming continued. Whose kid is it? Is there anyone here? Drifting asked around. Yutian Shenming was about to jump up, but a bunch of people had already taken him down. They almost tied him to a bench. Han family young master, of course, didn't want to do this kind of rough work. He looked at Drifting. You mean we should find 2 people to pretend to be multi-tree Mudo and take the chance to get close to them? Drifting nodded. If they're multi-tree Mudo, it's possible that they know where their new warehouse is. That's not necessarily true, Han family young master said. Drifting smiled. It's possible that we don't know where it is, but we might be able to get in. In fact, I think there's an 80% chance that Ingqi will do that. Those with slower reactions didn't immediately understand what he meant, but the Han family's young master understood very quickly. They didn't know where it was, but they could get in with a teleportation scroll. The room would display the second coordinate, so they couldn't tell where it was in the main city. If Ingqi wanted to let multi-tree Mudo see the warehouse, but didn't want to expose its location, it was simple. So what if we can get into the warehouse? Han family young master asked. I happen to have such a thing here. Drifting took out a scroll and showed it to everyone. Everyone took a look. Magic scroll. Teleportation gate. Opens a direct passage to a foreign space. Lasts for 1 minute. There are 2 steps to use this scroll. The first step is to set the coordinates of the entrance on the scroll. The second step is to use the scroll at the exit. Then the teleportation gate will appear, Drifting said. Can we enter a room without permission just like that? Someone asked. You can form a team in advance. Han family young master already understood what Drifting meant. Entering a room required permission from the owner of the house. But for a team, if the permission was given to the team leader, it would be given to the whole team. This was also a convenience set up by the game to simplify the operation. What's the use? If someone finds out something's wrong, they can kick everyone out. Someone was still doubtful. Disband the team after entering the room, Han family young master said. Everyone immediately understood. The team was disbanded, but the team members all had permission. If they wanted to kick them out, they couldn't do it all at once. The owner had to do it one by one. What do you think we should do with this little time? Han family young master looked at Drifting. Drifting coughed. That's Ingqi's warehouse, but it's a normal room. The things inside won't be protected by the system. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. After a while, brother, you said, this isn't a good idea, right? Killing people and getting equipment was something that players were used to. There wasn't any shame in picking up equipment dropped by others. But the scene that Drifting described was like entering a house to rob. This was unprecedented in the history of online games. In the parallel world, with some rules, it was actually possible. Everyone had a mental barrier, but some were eager to try. After all, the temptation was too great. Ingqi's warehouse. How many high-quality equipment would there be? You're quite sly. Han family young master commented on Drifting. Ahem, that's the idea. Let's see if we do it or not, Drifting said. Everyone was silent. Even if they wanted to do it, they didn't dare to say it. Even Drifting, the one who came up with the idea, didn't have anything to do with it. He only said that it was possible, but didn't say if he supported or opposed it. Without a doubt, with Sword Demon's character, he wouldn't refuse. He didn't even think before saying, this isn't good. Sword Demon was the guild leader. His words were the same as giving the plan a death sentence. Drifting was still calm, but he had placed the portal scroll on the table. It was as if it wasn't a scroll, but a multiple-choice question. Gufei wasn't here. Otherwise, with his personality of returning people's equipment, he would despise this idea even more. He would also have a deeper impression of Drifting's gloominess. It's not good to take people's stuff, but it's a good plan. We can try to make some changes. Han family young master said. Oh. Drifting looked over. For example, we can pretend to take their stuff. Han family young master said. Huh. Then we can pretend to forget? Unscathed in battle asked. Han family young master rolled his eyes. and ignored unscathed in battle. He continued, "This way, we will have the upper hand. Ingqi will chase us at all costs. Then, we can kill to our heart's content." Everyone was confused. They didn't understand Han family young master's idea. Is this a blow to Ingqi? Cloud Twilight was the first to voice his doubts. There aren't that many people in a gaming studio. Most of the time, they hire players to do it. What's Ingqi's loss if they keep fighting? Hiring fees? Han family young master turned to Sword Demon. This time it's a completely different opponent. Fighting with our lives on the line doesn't matter to the studio. The ones who will lose levels, experience, and equipment will be normal players like us. The Eagle Party was nothing more than a long-term meal ticket for Ingqi. Even if the Eagle Party was destroyed, they could always send out a short-term meal ticket to recruit new members. These people were just like us, normal players, but now they had become pawns of the workshop. Let's not talk about the fact that we will definitely lose in battle. Even if we win every battle, what will the studio lose in the process? It's nothing more than some money spent to hire players. We can only use this kind of unusual method to deal with this kind of unusual opponent. Using this kind of method to fight between guilds, we will be the ones who suffer in the end. There will also be players who have nothing to do with this. This is the only effective way to deal with Ingqi. Otherwise, we should just stop. The young master of the Han family finally said. The room was silent. Those who were originally shaken by this method felt that Han family young master's words made a lot of sense. Unscathed in battle and Yutian Shenming looked at each other in disbelief. Han family young master, didn't he always do whatever he wanted and never cared about the lives of others, even his own companions? With his brain circuit, there was no reason for him to come up with such an excuse. Could it be that he relied on such thoughts to make up his mind to robbing Qi? Unscathed in battle and Yutian Shenming wouldn't believe it even if they were beaten to death. Did this guy still need such an excuse? If I want to rob, I'll rob. This is probably enough for him. Everyone looked at Sword Demon. Those who had their own opinions were looking forward to it. Those who didn't had their own opinions were hoping that Sword Demon would make a final decision. The silence lasted for a long time before Sword Demon finally said, "Then, let's not continue." Sword Demon didn't compromise in the end. He couldn't accept such behavior, but he also realized that continuing to fight with the studio would only harm the interests of his brothers and more innocent players. Stopping the fight with the studio was the only choice. From this perspective, Sword Demon compromised again. He persisted in his beliefs but had to compromise with the studio. This was because his beliefs prevented him from finding a proper way to bring down the studio. The silence continued again. Han family young master didn't say another word as if he already knew the answer. The people in the room didn't know what to say. Drifting silently put away the scroll on the table. I'm going out for a walk. There are a lot of emails, I'll go take a look. Yin Xiang was the second to leave. There are still a lot of things in Cloud City that I need to familiarize myself with. I have to hurry. Ha ha ha. Yin Zhongmu laughed as he stood up and left. Hey, that chick is not bad. Yutian Shenming looked at the window with eagle eyes. Really? Hurry up. Unscathed in battle rushed out of the door, and Yutian Shenming followed closely. We haven't returned to Linine for a long time. Everyone should miss us, right? Deepwater asked Lu Kuo. It's good to go back and take a look, Lu Kuo replied. The two left. Baishir and Burning Robe seem to be coming out of prison soon. Let's go take a look. Jiannan, you also left with a group of brothers. Ahem, I just remembered that I wrote a few words wrong in the post I just posted. I'll go take a look. Brother, you also left. In a moment, the people in the room were all gone. They didn't say a word about Sword Demon's decision, and all left just like that. Only Sword Demon and Han family young master were left in the room. I've disappointed everyone. Sword Demon sighed. He had such a belief, but he knew that not everyone would be the same as him, and he would never force others to be the same as him. So he thought that his decision would probably make a lot of people unhappy. I think they should be relieved of a huge burden, the Han family's young master said. Sword Demon didn't understand. No matter what kind of excuse you have, this method isn't very good. I think everyone has some obstacles in their hearts. They want to do it, but they don't want to do it. Now that you've rejected it, they might as well just ignore it, Han family young master said. I hope so. Sword Demon sighed. The people who left the guild base basically went their own ways. Some went to level, some went to do quests, and some went to the market. The first to walk through the city gate was Yin Zhongmu. His group of brothers, including himself, had all lost a level this time, so they were very eager to level up. At this time, he also wanted to go to the leveling area to meet up with the others. When he passed by the city gate, he conveniently picked up a letter from the mailbox. Players who didn't have urgent matters wouldn't rush to the mailbox as soon as they received a notification. They would just casually glance at the mail when they passed by. The game was also filled with small advertisements, especially for studios. Directly sending private messages to players was their most common advertising method. For people like Yin Zhongmu, who was on the leaderboards and was the head of a big guild, the big studios didn't even bother to greet him. They already listed him as their studio's VIP member. There were often letters saying what kind of equipment they had recently gotten, and that they were welcome to write in and inquire about it. Yin Zhongmu had been busy recently, so he didn't really think to look at his mailbox. At this time, when he flipped through it, there really were a lot of advertising letters. It was clear that the recent fiery battles of the 10 Guilds Alliance had attracted many studios. For them, this was an excellent opportunity to make money from the war. They all sent letters to Yin Zhongmu to sell all kinds of equipment, battle tools, magic scrolls, etc. Yin Zhongmu casually flipped through these letters, and very quickly found a letter from Soaring Eagle. Soaring Eagle. Yin Zhongmu, who had researched a lot of information on the Eagle Group, obviously knew this name. He opened the letter in astonishment, and discovered that the other party wanted to meet up and have a good talk. Twilight in the Cloud immediately announced the news in the guild channel. He even sent a private message to Sword Ghost to inform him of the situation. Oh, they're taking the initiative to talk? That's not bad. Han family young master was a little more spirited after hearing this. When he wanted to extort money, he was very ruthless. This time, Sword Demon didn't say anything else. After all, the studio had caused them a lot of losses. It was not unreasonable to give everyone some compensation. Unfortunately, it's not forever. Han family young master was regretful. If it was this guy, they could still kill him after the talk. Do you want to meet him? Yin Zhongmu asked. He was now next to the mailbox, waiting for a reply. Of course, he didn't know that Soaring Eagle had sent letters to all of them. Go back, ask him to meet at Little Ray's bar. Han family young master told him where the representative of Cloud City was. Players who came to Cloud City couldn't not go to Little Ray's bar for a drink. Okay. Yin Zhongmu replied and waited for a reply. He hadn't received any news for a long time, and just as he was getting impatient, he saw a person walking towards the mailbox. No matter how he looked at it, Yin Zhongmu felt that the person was a little familiar. However, other than his friends in Cloud City, he didn't have any good friends like this. Just as he was wondering, the person had already taken the initiative to speak. Boss Yin, hello. Soaring Eagle? Yin Zhongmu reacted. Chapter 859. Although Yin Zhongmu had fought against the Eagle Group before and knew the names of all the members of the Eagle Group, there were only two of them that he was familiar with. Forever and 88 West. Therefore, when Yang Zhongmu first appeared, he only felt that he looked familiar but couldn't recognize him. At this moment, he saw this person walk towards the mailbox and call out his name. There seemed to be a trace of vigilance in this friendly manner. Yin Zhongmu immediately guessed who this person was. It's me. Yang Zhongmu confirmed Yin Zhongmu's guess with a smile. He extended his right hand, clearly intending to shake Yin Zhongmu's hand. However, Yin Zhongmu's face seemed to be covered in a layer of frost. He didn't smile at all, and even ignored Yang Zhongmu's extended hand. He coldly said, "To Little Ray's bar." Then he walked out of the city gate without looking back. Yang Zhongmu smiled bitterly. He didn't care about Yin Zhongmu's attitude. He just realized that this negotiation would most likely not end well. Yin Zhongmu didn't look back as he walked out of the city gate, but his fists were tightly clenched. At that moment, he really had the urge to fight Yang Zhongmu, but he resisted the urge. After telling Sword Demon that Yang Zhongmu was here, he didn't rush to Little Ray's bar. Instead, he went straight to the leveling area outside of Cloud City. His brothers were all leveling there. When they saw Yun Zhongmu, they immediately surrounded him and asked the same question in unison. Yang Zhongmu is here. What's going on? Yun Zhongmu had previously announced this in the channel. His brothers who had already joined Against the Heavens saw it, but they didn't ask questions in the channel. When they saw that the message was sent by Yun Zhongmu, they all sent him a private message. Yun Zhongmu only replied, "I'll be there soon." Yun Zhongmu told them everything that had happened during his discussion with Sword Ghost and the others. Everyone fell silent when they heard it. They had originally joined Against the Heavens to cause trouble for Ing Chi. Moreover, Sword Demon had promised to continue fighting against Ing Chi's studio. Who would have thought that in just a few hours, he would suddenly change his mind and give up? Fuck. What is the meaning of this? Cloud Zhongmu's group of brothers were clearly extremely dissatisfied with this. Cloud Twilight waved his hand dismissively. This is indeed a difficult matter. What's so difficult about it? Let's just follow Drifting's plan and kill them. It wasn't that Yun Zhongmu's brothers didn't have any morals. It was just that they were hot-blooded, impulsive, and liked to settle grudges. They only wanted to teach Ing Chi a lesson. As for the specifics, they didn't think too much about it. Yun Zhongmu only sighed. Sword Demon made a decision that went against his original promise, but Twilight in the Cloud knew that Sword Demon was also helpless. Sword Demon couldn't approve of Drifting's plan. This was Sword Demon's persistence. Cloud Twilight had always admired his persistence. Sword Demon was known as the #1 expert in the game. So many people believed in him because of his strong character. If he was a scumbag like Silvermoon, no matter how good his skills were, he wouldn't be recognized. It wasn't hard to be viewed as an expert, but to be recognized by everyone and be known as the #1 expert, that wasn't just a matter of skill. It wasn't that easy. Sword Demon couldn't approve of this line of thinking. Then, as the Han family young master had said, this was the only way to go against the studio. Fighting and killing would only involve more and more unrelated players. Clearly, with Sword Demon's integrity, he wasn't willing to do something that would cause more and more people to be harmed. He couldn't take either of these two paths, so the only choice left was to give up. Sometimes, being a good person was indeed harder than being a bad person. Old Yun, how about we do it ourselves? I think the focus should be on pretending to be Mudo. We don't really need to fight. We can deal with it ourselves, someone suggested. Everyone level up first. Let me think about it. Cloud Twilight waved his hand. They all had great faith in Yun Zhongmu. Immediately, no one dilly-dallied and grumbled endlessly, continuing to do what they needed to do. Cloud Twilight looked at the blurry Cloud City behind him, but he didn't know what to think. In Cloud City, although Yang Ying heard Cloud Twilight ask him to go to Little Ray's bar, he still went to check his mailbox. In the end, it was still Cloud Twilight who asked him to go to Little Ray's bar. Moreover, it was even less than what Cloud Twilight had told him directly. There were only the words Little Ray's bar in the letter. Clearly, Cloud Twilight hated the Eagle Group so much that he didn't even want to write anything more. Yang Ying took the letter and didn't think too much about it. He walked and asked questions as he went in the direction of Little Ray's bar. Yang Ying was alone and an assassin, so he was naturally very fast. When he arrived at Little Ray's bar, he didn't see the person he wanted to see. Originally, he thought that Cloud Twilight would be there for the negotiation, but he didn't expect Cloud Twilight to leave without even looking at him. Yang Ying had been guessing who he would meet along the way. However, when he arrived at Little Ray's bar, there was no familiar face, and no one took the initiative to greet him. Yang Ying stood there in a daze, not knowing what to do. "What do you need?" The enthusiastic Little Ray greeted the player who had been silent since he entered the bar. "I am looking for someone who is very overpowered," Yang Ying replied. "Oh, they'll be here soon. You can wait here for a moment." Little Ray enthusiastically led Yang Ying to a private room. Obviously, someone who was very overpowered had already greeted Little Ray. Yang Ying sat in the private room and looked around. This was the most famous bar in the parallel world. But on the surface, there didn't seem to be anything special. How is it? Did you make an appointment? At this time, Matchless Genius took the initiative to ask Yang Ying about his progress. Yes, I'm waiting, Yang Ying answered truthfully. Good. Matchless Genius only replied with this one word. Yang Ying waited for a long time, but no one came. He wasn't the other party's friend, so he couldn't send a message to ask. However, it would appear that the owner of the tavern was acquainted with the other party. Soaring Hawk was growing impatient. Just as he was about to call out to Xiaolei to ask about the other party, the curtain to the private room was suddenly pulled open. In walked one of Soaring Hawk's assassins. Boss Sword Demon? Yang Ying immediately realized who this person was. Those who participated in this negotiation had to have some say in it. They knew a little about very overpowered situation. They knew that Young Master's elite group was the core, and there were other experts like drifting. However, there was only one assassin who had the right to speak, and that was Sword Ghost, the guild leader of Very Overpowered. That's me. Sword Demon nodded. I'm Yang Ying. Yang Ying also introduced himself. After Sword Demon, more people entered the room. Han family Young Master, Brother Yu, Yutian Shenming, and Unscathed in Battle. It seemed like there were more people behind them, but Unscathed in Battle turned around and shouted, Don't go in, there's no room. You go out too. How can this row fit 5 people? Yutian Shenming pushed Unscathed in Battle out. The layout of this private room was a table against the wall, and there was a row of benches on both sides. If there were 3 people on each side, it would be perfect. If there were 4 people, it would be okay, but if there were 5 people, even on the bus during rush hour, they wouldn't be able to sit like this. You go out. Unscathed in Battle obviously wouldn't be so obedient and fight with Yutian Shenming. In terms of strength, Yutian Shenming obviously didn't have an advantage. The small private room didn't have much agility, but this guy was shameless, dragging Brother Yu with him. However, 2 + 1 still couldn't beat Unscathed in Battle. Brother Yu hurriedly gave himself and Yutian Shenming a power blessing each, and they barely fought to a draw. Yang Ying was dumbfounded. Was this the legendary number 1 warrior, number 1 mage, and number 1 gossip? This was the child elite group that won the mercenary group competition with 6 people. This was the core of a heaven-defying guild that managed to secure victory by forming a guild at the last minute during the city war? What kind of mess was this? Are you guys done? Han family Young Master was furious. However, although there weren't many people who dared to look down on Han family Young Master, they didn't necessarily listen to him. This shout didn't have any effect at all, and the 3 continued to drag and pull. Unscathed in Battle was a little anxious after attacking for a long time. He was extremely dissatisfied with the 2 of them fighting 2 against 1. Brother Yu, let go. I'll throw this brat out. Brother Yu don't want it. After he throws out, I'll definitely throw you out. His butt is big, he has to sit with 2 people. Yutian Shenming said. There's still space here. Yang Ying said weakly. They were all famous experts, but now they were fighting so unskillfully for a seat. Yang Ying couldn't stand it anymore. Scram, who wants to sit with you? Yutian Shenming wasn't polite at all to Yang Ying. Yang Ying was also angry, but at this moment he could only bear it and keep quiet. They were still in a stalemate. Unscathed in Battle felt someone pat him from behind. He was furious. Who is it? It's me. The person behind him said. Qianli, you came at the right time. Help me kill these 2 shameless people. Unscathed in Battle said. Who's shameless? Who's shameless? Fuck, who's first? Yutian Shenming shouted. No shit, you're a fucking archer. If Unscathed in Battle didn't have the speed, he wouldn't be the last to enter. What are you fighting for? Let me in first. Gu Fei shouted from behind. There's no more space. The people inside all shouted. How is that possible? Can't there be 8 people here? Gu Fei glanced inside and saw an empty space. He used teleportation and directly flashed inside. Without any hesitation, he sat next to Yang Ying. Qianli drunk. Yang Ying immediately called out Gu Fei's name. You are? Gu Fei was the same as Yin Zhongmu. He knew all the names, but he didn't quite match up with the person. Yang Ying. Yang Ying replied. Then Qianli drunk took out a small notebook from his pocket. He flipped it open a few times, shook his head, and put it back in his pocket. He looked at Yang Ying and said regretfully, "There's no PK value." Yang Ying sweated. Gu Fei and Yang Ying's action of sitting together startled the three people who were arguing. Yang Ying immediately sat in the innermost seat. Gu Fei also moved in with him, making an empty seat. Unscathed in battle saw that Gu Fei had taken the lead, so he decided to sit there as well. The 6 members of the elite group gathered, sandwiching Yang Ying in the corner. Yang Ying felt an unprecedented pressure. He knew that if this negotiation didn't work out and the other party wanted to kill him, he wouldn't be able to live. "Tell me, what do you want to talk about?" Han family young master went straight to the point. However, Yutian Shenming and Unscathed in Battle were still pointing their middle fingers at each other. The serious atmosphere of the negotiation was completely gone. Yang Ying could only calmly pretend that he didn't see it. He said in a low voice, "We think that fighting won't benefit either side. Why don't we all sit down and discuss how to solve this problem?" "You can make the decision?" Han family young master sneered. Yang Ying's face turned red. He didn't expect the other party to poke at his weakness. In the Eagle Group he was just a former leader. In Inch Studio he was just a thug. He didn't have any real power. How could he make the decision? "Tell him yes." Unparalleled Wonder replied. When Sword Demon and the others appeared, Yang Ying immediately reported to Unparalleled Wonder. Unparalleled Wonder immediately asked Yang Ying to broadcast the whole process. However, the farce of Unscathed in Battle and the others snatching seats put Yang Ying in a difficult position. He really didn't know if he should broadcast it to Unparalleled Wonder. In the end, he waited until the negotiation officially started before relaying the content of the conversation to Unparalleled Wonder. With his boss controlling him from behind, Eaglet knew that he could answer yes, but he still had to wait for his boss's signal. After receiving such an answer, Eaglet nodded without hesitation and said, "Of course I was sent here, so naturally, I can take full responsibility." "Oh." Han family young master looked at him with interest. "What's your name?" Yang Ying wanted to vomit blood. He had said his name twice. What were these people doing? Were they doing it on purpose? Yang Ying. Even though he wanted to vomit blood, Yang Ying still said his name for the 3rd time. "Oh, Yang Ying. The original leader of Eagle Group, right? Why did you quit? Were you set up forever?" Han family young master said. Of course not." Yin Yang was a little dazed by the other party's sudden and inexplicable question, so he answered without thinking. "No way? This is that guy's style." Han family young master said. Yang Ying looked helpless. "Everyone, let's talk about our current situation." "Go ahead." Han family young master said. "Continuing to fight won't do any good for either side. You said that just now." The young master of the Han family interrupted and reminded him. Yang Ying took a deep breath. Of course he knew that he had said that before. He just wanted to use that as an opening. These people were purposely causing trouble, weren't they? Were they doing it on purpose? Yang Ying started to feel lucky that he was being controlled by his boss. If he was the one in charge, the consequences would be unimaginable. So fighting won't solve the problem. Let's all sit down and talk about it. Let's see if there's a solution that will benefit both sides. Yang Ying said. We don't care if you guys get any benefits or not. The key is, what benefits will we get? Han family young master's extortion was so blatant. What benefits do you want? Yang Ying's question came from Matchless Genius's instructions. What else can your studio take out? Isn't it just some money, equipment, scrolls, and other random stuff? Han family young master said. This time, Yang Ying swallowed his blood. This person's words really deserved it. Random stuff? Wasn't this sort of chaos what every gamer was chasing after in their gaming career? I'll give you a list of the specifics later. When Han family young master said this, it made people feel like they were asking for too much. They couldn't even explain their requests with their mouths. They had to write it down. Yang Ying took a deep breath. Go ahead. Why don't you tell us your request? Or rather, what benefits do you want? Han family young master said. In Yang opened Matchless Hero's message, but before he could finish his sentence he froze. What do you want? The other side asked. Yang Ying, on the other hand, sent a message to Matchless Wonder in a hurry to confirm that he had sent the wrong message. That's it, that's right. Matchless Genius replied. Yang Ying froze for a few seconds, causing the 6 elite team members to look at him in shock. Our request is as follows. Yang Ying said. What time? Now it was the elite team members' turn to be stunned. In their minds, Ying Qi's studio only had one request, which was for them to stop messing around with Ying Qi. What request? What was this? Details? While they were confused, Yang Ying continued. First, stop messing around with Ying Qi's studio's work. They didn't make a sound. Second, work with Ying Qi's studio to manage the real estate business in Cloud City. What? They thought they heard wrong. Third. However, Ying Yang continued speaking quickly. His current mood was actually the same as the rest of the elite squad. Third, work with Ying Qi's studio to promote efficient leveling. After Ying Yang said the third word, he didn't even raise his head. He didn't want to look at the others' expressions. He could guess that they must have the same expression as him. Ying Yang himself didn't understand how unparalleled genius could think of this. Is there a fourth request? Yang Ying suddenly heard Han Family Young Master ask calmly. Eagle Yang raised his head and looked at him, shaking his head in confusion. It seems like you guys are the ones asking for the lion's share? Han Family Young Master said. Yang Ying looked at Matchless Genius's new message again. His mood worsened, but he still forced a smile. Actually, our request is different from yours. It's a win-win request for both sides. I think you guys understand this. I agree with that. Han Family Young Master nodded, then pointed at Yutian Shiming and Unscathed in Battle's group. But look, these people want to cut you into 1,000 pieces, yet you're still trying to work with us. What's wrong with your brain? Cut into 1,000 pieces? Just one slash, right? Gu Fei suddenly said. Everyone, I think you guys know by now that combat doesn't pose any threat to our studio. Therefore, I hope that everyone can think rationally and put down your weapons to work together. This is the best choice. We will try our best to satisfy all of your requests. After Ying Yang repeated Matchless Hero's words, he knew that his life was probably going to be forfeit today. Thinking rationally was correct. However, in a game, rationality wasn't necessary. Unlike life, there were too many things that could be redone, including life. Matchless Genius, what are you thinking? Yang Ying was confused. Chapter 860. Although Yang Ying repeated Matchless Wonder's words 100%, he could not understand Matchless Wonder's train of thought. Judging from the audience's reaction, Yang Ying knew that he was right. The players in front of him would never agree to Matchless Wonder's so-called 1, 2, 3. Matchless Wonder seemed to have made a mistake. He was not negotiating with a merchant like himself, but a player with flesh and blood. It was not that the players could not think rationally and pursue the greatest benefit. The problem was that a player and a merchant would pursue the greatest benefit in different ways. Matchless Wonder seemed to think that the players shared the same values as him. Or perhaps, he thought that the players fighting and killing had little effect on his studio. So he was fearless and took on an unyielding attitude? These were the only two possibilities Yang Ying could come up with. If he did not know that he was an insignificant character in Matchless Wonder's workshop, he would have guessed that Matchless Wonder wanted him dead on purpose. The crowd looked as though they were going to tear Yang Ying into pieces. After all, Yang Ying was the one who said 1, 2, 3. Yang Ying tried his best to hide his expression and tone, but it was useless. Yang Ying, who was trapped in the corner, had accepted his fate. What's the name of your workshop's boss? Han Family Young Master suddenly asked. Matchless Wonder. Yang Ying answered without hesitation. We understand Matchless Wonder's intentions. What does our boss think? Han Family Young Master looked at Sword Demon. The others also looked at Sword Demon. Everyone realized that the Sword Ghost had encountered a big problem. He had just made the decision to end things with Ying Qi, but he didn't expect Ying Qi to propose such an unbelievable condition. This was unexpected. Everyone thought that as long as they nodded, Ying Qi would happily prostrate herself in front of them. But, isn't there a problem? Brother, you spoke in the mercenary channel of the elite group. Yeah. They're so arrogant. Why? Are they really sure that we can't do anything to their studio? Surprisingly, Unscathed in Battle was also thinking seriously about the problem. It was obvious how unimaginable this matter was. Even such a frivolous person could not spare the time to think about it. Could it be that someone was bribed, so they knew that the sword demon had just made this decision? So, they deliberately created conditions that were impossible to reconcile, making it difficult for the sword demon to back down. Yu Tianshengming was also very serious, and his conjecture was rather chilling. This was because the sword demon's decision to reconcile had not been announced yet. If someone had been bribed, then it could only be someone from their inner circle. This was indeed distressing. I understand. When Yu Tianshengming sent the message, everyone in front of him could see the shock on his face. The traitor is drifting, Yu Tianshengming said. Fuck. Everyone was already used to Yu Tianshengming, saying that drifting was something they didn't take him seriously. Yu Tianshengming actually had an explanation this time. This guy knew about the sword demon's personality, so he provided such a strategy at that time because he already knew that the sword demon would never accept such an idea. At the same time, he was very clear about the studio's situation. He predicted that rejecting such a plan was equivalent to giving up an effective way to deal with the studio. So the only choice was to leave the matter unsettled with Ying Qi's studio. Thus he revealed this situation to Ying Qi. Ying Qi's people immediately came over with harsh conditions before agreeing to reconcile with us. This was clearly to put the sword demon in a difficult position. Everyone was stunned. This time, Yu Tianshengming's analysis was unexpectedly clear. In addition, people like Gu Fei had experience with drifting's dark side. If drifting did such a thing, he honestly wouldn't be too surprised, just like how he wasn't too surprised when he heard that drifting came up with such a robbery idea. It's been hard on you. Han family young master suddenly sent a message. After following me for so long, your IQ has actually increased a little. Maybe in the future when I look down on the world, I'll be able to see a little bit of your brilliance. At least you've done something that can make ordinary people believe. Fuck. What do you mean by that? That's exactly what happened. Yu Tianshengming sent a message. Then what's the benefit of putting the sword demon in a difficult position for Ying Qi's studio? Is it just to put the sword demon in a difficult position? Han family young master asked. If the sword demon is in a difficult position, he might make an inappropriate decision. Then Ying Qi's studio might have a chance to take advantage of it. Yu Tianshengming's words became like his usual way of walking, a little lost. Oh, what kind of decision would give Ying Qi a chance to take advantage of it? Han family young master continued to ask. How would I know? Anyway, that's how it is. Yu Tianshengming was completely lost. Alright, then let's get the person involved, sword demon, to say what kind of decision he would make with regards to Ying Qi's conditions. Han family young master suddenly brought the topic back to before. That time he said it in person, and the audience included Ying Yang. This time he said it in the channel, and the audience was only them. Therefore, Sword Demon replied in the channel. Of course we can't agree to such conditions. Although I can't accept Drifting's suggestion, I think we can find another way to compete with Ying Qi. While everyone was discussing, Sword Demon seemed to have come up with an answer. That's dangerous. This will give Ying Qi's studio a chance to take advantage of it. Han family young master continued to mock Yu Tianshengming mercilessly. Yu Tianshengming's resentful and embarrassed expression was already displayed on his face. Where are you going? Gu Fei suddenly spoke, and he flipped his right hand and patted Ying Yang. I'm not going anywhere. Ying Yang quickly replied. What book is that? Can you let me take a look? Gu Fei asked. Nothing. Ying Yang quickly put the book in his hand back into his pocket. Of course, it wasn't a book, it was a teleportation scroll. When Han family young master said that he would listen to Boss Sword Demon, the people in front of him suddenly went silent. However, their expressions changed from time to time, and Ying Yang immediately knew that these people were communicating in the channel. Ying Yang felt that this might be his only chance to escape, so he put his hand into his pocket and secretly took out the teleportation scroll. At that moment, everyone's attention was focused on Yu Tianshengming, and Yu Tianxinming himself didn't pay attention to Yin Yang. Yin Yang thought that his chance had arrived, and he quickly wanted to use the scroll, but he didn't expect that before the white light of the teleportation circle flashed, it was extinguished by Gu Fei, who was beside him. Seeing that the other party didn't immediately point it out, Yin Yang quickly pretended to be ignorant, but his heart was even more desperate. Old brother Yin Yang, looking at you, it seems like you don't have much confidence in what you said. Why don't you tell us what you think of the so-called 1, 2, 3 that you said? Han family young master said. Yin Yang was very hesitant, but the people in the circle were very patient. After a long while, Yin Yang finally opened his mouth carefully. I think you guys might not agree? Since you already know our answer, then we won't send you off. Han family young master said. You're letting me go? Yin Yang was pleasantly surprised. No way. Everyone cried out. You can kill me, I don't care. I just said that I won't send you off. Aren't you guys thinking too much? Han family young master said. Yin Yang was depressed. It seemed like the other party knew that he was just passing on a message. However, he had never heard of a rule like not killing envoys in a war between two countries. Everyone was willing to take on the task of sending Yin Yang to his death, but unfortunately, no one had the geographical advantage like Gu Fei. Gu Fei also shook his head in pity and said to them, Such a good seat, I'm really curious why none of you took it from the start. Yin Yang coughed up blood. He never thought that this was the reason why Qianli would sit beside him. He thought that it was because he was an expert and didn't care about the small details. But there's no point in hiding like this. You guys should do it. Gu Fei said as he stood up. He wasn't prepared to attack Yin Yang. Of course, Yin Yang didn't think that this was good news. Anyone who tried to kill him would die. Qianli was drunk and didn't attack. This room was full of top players. Yin Yang was sure that he didn't have any godly skills to escape. Then I'll do it. Unscathed in battle didn't hold back. As soon as Gu Fei walked out, he was the closest to Yin Yang. The room was small, and it was inconvenient for him to wield his sword with both hands. He used his fist and punched Yin Yang's face. Yin Yang saw that his opponent was so arrogant that he didn't even use a weapon. No matter how strong Unscathed in battle was, he had no attack power against Yin Yang, who had luxurious equipment. Yin Yang immediately thought of taking him down with him. He took out a dagger from under the table and stabbed at Unscathed in battle, who knew that Yu Tianxinming's arrow would be faster. At such a distance, the speed of the arrow was undoubtedly the fastest attack. Yin Yang obviously couldn't dodge it, and his head was shot. Unscathed in battle ignored the stab and continued to punch Yin Yang's head. Yin Yang's vision was a little blurry, but he saw Unscathed in battle's body emit a white light, and Brother Yu was busy giving him blessings. These guys. They were arguing so fiercely before, as if they were enemies. However, once they started fighting, their teamwork wasn't sloppy at all. They even ganged up on him. Did they really have to work so hard? Seeing that Brother Yu had finished giving blessings to Unscathed in battle and Yu Tianxinming, Yin Yang finally gave up and died. The moment before he died, he seemed to hear Unscathed in battle and Yu Tianxinming arguing about who killed whom. They're arguing again. How am I the monster? That was the first thought that came to Yin Yang's mind when he revived. He then checked his equipment. He didn't lose anything. Of course, his level had dropped. After a sigh, Yin Yang didn't forget his mission. He immediately sent a message to Unrivaled Genius. They didn't agree. Oh, how did they react? Unrivaled Genius asked. Nothing much. They just said that they didn't agree, and then they killed me, Yin Yang said. Oh, thank you for your hard work. Go rest. Unrivaled Genius didn't seem to care about the outcome. This made Yin Yang even more confused. Although he had just finished work in Group 2 and was very tired, he didn't rush to rest. He quickly sent a private message to Eternal. Oh, you're back. How did it go? Eternal asked. It seems like you don't know the conditions that the boss mentioned. Otherwise, you wouldn't have asked. Yin Yang told Eternal about Unrivaled Genius's conditions. Eternal was at a loss. What is the boss thinking? Yin Yang sighed. I don't know either. He mentioned these conditions. Does he not understand the other party's role? Or are you saying that he has nothing to fear? In Yang simply stated his two guesses. Or maybe you're mistaken about his role this time, Eternal suddenly said. What do you mean? In Yang didn't understand. Maybe he's not a merchant this time, but a normal player, Eternal said. In Yang froze. You mean that he's going to fight like a normal player and fight against overpowered to the end? You should know that he's a very strong player. Our Eagle group is the best proof. Does our existence have much to do with his business? Eternal said. No. In Yang felt a little pained when he said this. Their existence. What exactly was their existence? In the past, In Yang didn't think too much about this. He just felt that playing games was profitable. Plus, he didn't have to do much, so it didn't affect his game too much. It was killing two birds with one stone. But now, if Eternal's guess was correct, then wouldn't this negotiation be meaningless? If he wanted to fight against overpowered, he could just maintain the status quo. Why did he have to go over and say all this? For what? Just to let the other party feel his fearlessness, his toughness? Was the existence of their Eagle group just a toy that unparalleled genius could throw away? In Yang didn't think this way before because this was the first time he felt that unparalleled genius didn't respect them. Even when he appointed Eternal as the next leader, In Yang didn't feel this way because he recognized Eternal as well. At that time, he was the leader of the Eagle team, but because he was the one who first established the Eagle team, Everlasting had been the true backbone of the team since then. Just like now, when he didn't understand the boss's decision, Everlasting was the first person Eagle team came to talk to. But this is only my guess. If this is the case, I don't think there's a need for him to send you for this negotiation. Go and rest. I'll let you know if there's any news. Eternal said. Okay. In Yang had no other choice. With a stomach full of questions, he went offline. In the leveling area outside of Cloud City, a group of brothers behind Yun Zhongmu were quietly leveling. They glanced over at Yun Zhongmu from time to time, because someone had just come looking for him. It seemed like they had something to discuss. Boss Yun, are you not interested in my plan at all? Drifting smiled. Chapter 861. One of the characteristics of a boss was that he was always in a dilemma. Sword Ghost had just been tangled up twice in a row, and in the blink of an eye, Cloud Twilight was also tangled up. Moreover, just like Sword Ghost, he was tangled up twice in a row. He had just finished tangling up one thing when something else happened next. Nominally speaking, Yun Zhongmu was no longer the boss after joining the extremely heaven-defying group. However, in the hearts of Yun Zhongmu's group of brothers, there was only one boss, and that was Yun Zhongmu. No matter how good Sword Demon was, how famous he was, or how strong he was, he couldn't replace Cloud Twilight's position in their hearts. Even Drifting understood this, so he still called Cloud Midnight boss. Cloud Midnight didn't care about how to address Drifting. He just looked at Drifting seriously. There were quite a few people in their group who wanted to work with Drifting. Yun Zhongmu was still hesitant about this. He hadn't expected Drifting to take the initiative to approach them. He had to re-evaluate Drifting. After all, both sides had different standpoints. Yun Zhongmu and the others had joined Defiance of the Heavens for a reason. It was because Defiance of the Heavens would continue to fight against Ing Chi that they decided to join. Fighting against Ing Chi was one of their most important goals, so even if they were to act on their own or leave the guild, Yun Zhongmu wouldn't feel like he was letting Sword Ghost down. After all, Sword Ghost was the one who disobeyed them first. Drifting was different. He was a member of Against the Will. Their boss had already said that he wouldn't do this, but he still took the initiative to contact others. Cloud Twilight didn't approve of this. Everyone said that they wanted to work with Drifting, but Cloud Twilight was still hesitating. He thought that they could do this alone, but if they asked Drifting to work with them, it would ruin Sword Demon's plan. That wasn't something Cloud Twilight wanted to see. Cloud Twilight didn't say anything. Drifting didn't say anything either. He just smiled and waited for Cloud Twilight's reply. Why did you come looking for us? Cloud Twilight suddenly asked this. Why? I thought you needed this plan. Drifting's smile didn't change. But this plan doesn't need us, Cloud Twilight said. Boss, what do you mean? We don't want to work with you. Cloud Twilight's tone was unequivocal. Why? Drifting felt strange. As someone who defies the heavens, it's best if you know your place, Cloud Twilight said. But Drifting smiled again. That's nothing to me. Cloud Twilight nodded. I've heard about you. Wandering everywhere, just like your name. You're always pushing the blame to the guild, but you're leaving so easily. Drifting was silent. But it looks like you're going to need a scapegoat this time? Cloud Twilight laughed. Oh, Qianli is drunk. He's not someone you can just shake off, right? I'm sure you've seen the function of his wanted license. Cloud Twilight stared at Drifting. Drifting didn't bat an eyelid, but his smile eventually disappeared. If I told you to sell me that teleportation scroll of yours, I think you might not agree? Cloud Twilight said. If it includes this plan, the scroll is priceless. How much do you want? Drifting asked. You're right. Cloud Twilight nodded. Then I wish you success. Drifting left. Cloud Twilight's brothers immediately surrounded him. Most of them had guessed why Drifting had come. But when Cloud Twilight turned around, he shook his head at them. Why? Some of the brothers didn't understand. If they were hesitant before, when Drifting came to them, wasn't it the perfect time to make up his mind? He's not a simple guy. It's not easy to work with him. Right now, Sword Demon has decided to reconcile with Ying Qi. If we want to do something, we have to get rid of the heavens first. We can't let others get involved. Drifting is the exact opposite. He has the identity of a heaven-defying member. After doing this, he takes the equipment and leaves. It's definitely heaven-defying. It's hard to explain. If it was a normal guild, they wouldn't be able to do anything to him. However, heaven-defying is different. Qianli's wanted license guarantees that he can find you as soon as you have PK points. How can an expert like Drifting never have PK points? That's why he needs a cover that can divert attention. Everyone knows how deep the grudge between us and Ying Qi is. If he works with us, people will think that we're the main characters. Drifting was roped in by us. Then, we'll be the ones who can't explain ourselves. Otherwise, it's easy to find a partner for this plan. This guy is so sinister. Cloud Twilight's brothers exclaimed. We have to tell Boss Sword Demon, right? Someone said. Although in their hearts, Cloud Twilight was still their boss, they respected Sword Demon. This isn't easy to deal with. We don't have any concrete evidence. People might think that we're stirring up trouble. Our situation is already quite sensitive to begin with, and our numbers are much greater than the original number of people. Cloud and Twilight said. Old Yin, why don't we just leave? Someone finally spoke up. Ever since Yun Zhongmu and the others found out that the Sword Ghost had suddenly decided to reconcile with Ying Qi, many of them had been discussing this matter in private. Yeah, there's no point in not leaving. However, they've just joined. Let's wait a few more days. Otherwise, it might affect their guild too much. Cloud Twilight said. Some of the kind-hearted brothers nodded in agreement. There were also many who had opinions about Heaven Defying and Sword Demon. Cloud Twilight didn't try to persuade them. After leaving Cloud Twilight's leveling area, Drifting wasn't as calm as he looked. After turning around a small hill, Love Left Hand and Handsome Right Hand were fighting monsters while waiting for him. When they saw Drifting return, they immediately greeted him. How was it? Love Left Hand asked. Drifting shook his head and looked surprised. Not simple. Yin Zhongmu isn't simple either. He's worthy of being the leader of more than 4,000 people. I thought he would refuse to cooperate, but I didn't expect him to see through me. What do we do now? Without them, it's not easy. Let's put it aside for now. Drifting sighed. It was clear that the overpowered guild had already formed such a small clique with differing intentions. The official guild members were one group. Cloud Twilight's group was another. Drifting's group was another. There was also a fourth group. Wandering Sword's group. A few hours after Sword Demon came out of the dungeon, 100 Years Strategist and Flaming Cloak came out one after the other. The two of them came out at about the same time, and they knew that they had to do things together. Therefore, they kept their time together. Their release wasn't as sensational as Sword Demon's, but there were people who came to greet them. Apart from Wandering Sword's group, Nitrite Radical had brought a few people from Cloud Soaring Studio with him. Windy Valley, who had dealt with Gu Fei's group before, was among them. Flaming Cloak came out first, so he received a normal welcome. As soon as 100 Years Strategist came out, a group of people surrounded him. Nitrite Radical, who had always been calm, was excited. He rushed up and shook 100 Years Strategist's hand. "You're finally out." The others tactfully stood to the side. Wandering Swords Group knew Nitrite Radical's identity. They weren't like 100 Years Strategist, who was on equal footing with Nitrite Radical. They were just a group of workers. Hello. 100 Years Strategist was happy too. He didn't enjoy being in prison for nearly 40 hours. "We've sorted out part of the information. When can we start?" Nitrite Radical asked. "We can do it now. Do you know these people? They're all mine." Assistant. Wandering Sword stood up. "Oh, thank you for your hard work." Nitrite Radical already knew that 100 Years Strategist would bring some people with him. After all, they had some offline communication, such as a formal cooperation contract. Nitrite Radical couldn't wait to sign it with 100 Years Strategist. 100 Years Strategist was straightforward. It was such a big deal, but he just talked about it in the dungeon that day and signed it offline, which made Nitrite Radical excited. There was no stipulation in the contract regarding assistance, so 100 Era's Jingluan had to pay for the expenses of bringing his own manpower. In this situation, 100 Era's Jingluan had no objections since Nitrite Radicals had mentioned it. Therefore, 100 Era's Jingluan would only be happier even if he brought thousands of people with him. "But we only prepared one copy of the information," Nitrite Radical said. There were no photocopiers in the game, so everything was handwritten. Books were quite precious. There were rumors that some studios were doing woodblock printing, but Nitrite Radical didn't know if it was true. In the game, it wasn't difficult for professionals to do woodblock printing, and the system provided the paper. However, he hadn't heard of any alchemists making ink, so he didn't know how to print it. "It's okay, one copy is enough. We'll have a lot of work. Why don't we start now?" 100 Years Strategist and Nitrite Radical had already communicated about the development process of the efficient leveling method. "Sure, that's great." Nitrite Radical really liked 100 Years Strategist's style of getting things done. Jian Nanyu and the others were startled. They didn't expect to start working so soon. They didn't even know how Ing Chi Studio and the others were doing, but in the blink of an eye, they were gone. It wasn't that Jian Nanyu and the others were arrogant. They were indeed a very powerful force. In terms of the 7 of them fighting together, they were definitely not inferior to the Eagle Group. "I'm here to look at your information. Where should we go first?" 100 Years Strategist mumbled. "Here are the scrolls. Use them with the monster leveling area above." Nitrite Radical pursued efficiency, so he couldn't bear to let 100 Years Strategist waste time on walking. When he was collecting information, he had already prepared the scrolls everywhere. "That's very thoughtful. Thank you." 100 Years Strategist took the scrolls. There were simply too many to fit in his pocket. Blank scrolls without coordinates could be stacked, but they couldn't be stacked after they had coordinates. They had to be placed elsewhere. Mr. 100 Years can just take a portion first. I'll help you keep the rest. If you need them, just let me know in advance, and I'll send them over immediately." Ling Gufeng saw that it was really inconvenient to wander around with a bunch of teleportation scrolls, so he hurriedly said, "That's fine." 100 Years Strategist didn't care. At this moment, he flipped to the first page of the information Yun Tung had organized and clapped. "Then let's do this first." Ling Gufeng glanced at it, and immediately took out the scrolls. There were exactly 2 of them, enough for 100 Years Strategist and 8 of the 7 people to fly. "Then I'll go now," 100 Years Strategist and Nitrite Radical called out. "Everything will go according to our agreement," Nitrite Radical said. "Of course." 100 Years Strategist nodded and called Jian Nan and the others over. 2 scrolls and 2 teleportation arrays. The 8 of them were teleported to a leveling area. Jian Nan and the others didn't know which main city it was. Things were progressing too quickly. This 100 Lives Classic was too straightforward. Danon, say hello to Drunk Qianli and the others. Blackwater said. Yes, we have to say hello. Jiannan sighed. The 7 of them were quite grateful to Gu Fei. He brought them into the industry of efficient leveling. After they finished this job, they wouldn't have to worry about food and clothing for a long time. Say hello for what? 100 Era's strategist asked casually as he observed the battle between a nearby monster and a player. About the matter of being surrounded last time. It's not over yet, Jiannan roughly explained. Oh, then hurry up. He might need our help after he's done. 100 Years strategist immediately went to beat the monster. The 7 of them looked at each other. This wasn't something that could be finished in a few hours. Everyone had seen the huge stack of information, and it was obvious that it wasn't all. How long would it take for them to finish? No matter what, let's say hello first, Glu said. I know. Jiannan nodded and sent a message to Gu Fei and Sword Demon, saying that they had started work with 100 Years strategist. Oh, he's out? Work hard, Gu Fei replied. Okay, Sword Demon replied. The 2 of them were still in the private room of Little Ray's bar. It hadn't been too long since they sent Yang away. They were trying to figure out Inch's studio's intentions. After a brief discussion, they all had the same opinion. Inch's boss wouldn't be so stupid. With his attitude, it was obvious that he wanted to start a war. However, what was the purpose of starting a war? Was it because he couldn't take it lying down? No matter what, we don't have a way out now, Han Family Young Master said. Not at all. Efficiency leveling has already been signed by 100 Years strategist and Cloud Soaring. Brother, you said. That's right. Moreover, efficiency leveling has nothing to do with our guild. Only 100 Years strategist and I can do it, Gu Fei said. Fuck, what kind of attitude is that? You're also a member of the guild. How can you separate yourself from the guild so clearly? I despise you, Yutian Shunming said. Who are you talking to? You have no respect for your elders, Gu Fei scolded. I'm just stating the facts. Yutian Shunming didn't dare to argue with Gu Fei. Chapter 862. After being scolded, Yutian Shunming didn't dare to make a sound. The private room of the pub became silent. Everyone's mood was quite heavy. Although Sword Demon was the chairman, they couldn't let Sword Demon worry about this alone. They didn't know what Ing Chi's studio wanted to do. After a moment of silence, Brother Yu was the first to speak. Should we tell Old Yun about this in advance? Yes, I'll tell him. Sword Demon nodded. Yin Zhongmu had just sent off drifting and talked to his brothers. His mood was as heavy as the others in the pub. This departure was extremely heaven-defying. Where would they go with their brothers? This question gave Yin Zhongmu a headache. Just as he was feeling helpless, Sword Demon suddenly sent him a message. Sword Demon was always concise and comprehensive. He quickly explained what was going on. Yin Zhongmu was startled. He didn't know whether he should be happy or worried. This trivial matter had changed several times in a day. He couldn't keep up with the pace. Yin Zhongmu was afraid that something new would happen in a few minutes, so he didn't tell his brothers first. He would let this unpredictable situation torment him first. What's your plan now? Yin Zhongmu asked as he thought about drifting. If that guy knew about the latest situation, would he bring up his plan again? However, after realizing how sinister drifting was, Yin Zhongmu had a deeper understanding of the danger of this plan. Even if the other party was a studio, which side would the public be on if this matter was exposed? Who would stand on the public's side? If it was a group activity, the person who would bear the burden would be the chairman, Sword Demon. Drifting, on the other hand, could get benefits and stay behind the scenes. Maybe if Sword Demon didn't reject this plan, this would be Drifting's wishful thinking. You guys practice first. I'm going back to the city, Yin Zhongmu told his brothers. He wanted to go back to the main city to meet Sword Demon and the others. Drifting was really dangerous. Cloud Twilight felt that he had to warn Sword Demon. He was afraid that the message might not be clear. Cloud Twilight was naturally very fast. It didn't take him long to arrive at Little Ray's bar. The 6 members of the elite group, the absolutely heaven-defying core, were still inside, discussing the current situation. Twilight in the Cloud had come to greet him, So he sent a message and went into the private room. Elder Yun, take a seat. Brother Yu stood up and greeted him. How's the discussion going? Cloud Twilight asked. Let's wait and see first. Sword Demon said. Oh, does everyone in the guild know about this? Cloud Twilight asked. There's no need to know. Sword Demon smiled bitterly. I didn't even have time to release the news of reconciling with Ying Qi. This torment really is troublesome. Cloud Twilight had experienced it firsthand. Honestly, if you guys reconcile with Ying Qi, are you guys going to leave? Sword Demon asked Cloud Twilight. Cloud Twilight smiled bitterly. We were already planning to do that. Sword Demon sighed. He patted Cloud Twilight's shoulder but didn't say anything. Right, does Drifting know about this news? Cloud Twilight suddenly asked. Him? Not yet. Sword Demon shook his head. This guy. Cloud Twilight's face showed a hesitant expression. He didn't know how close Drifting was to these people. In his eyes, Drifting was always a little earlier than him. That meant that he was closer to him than he was. What's wrong with him? Sword Demon asked. Haha, you can see that he's not a good person, right? Yutian Shenming was excited. From Yun Zhongmu's awkward expression, everyone could see that if Yun Zhongmu wanted to talk about matters related to Drifting, it might not be anything good. Of course, everyone ignored Yutian Shenming's opinion about Drifting. At this moment, Cloud Twilight finally spoke. He told them about Drifting and his own speculation. Ugh, these are all my personal guesses. I don't have any proof. Normally, I shouldn't speak so carelessly as a newcomer, but I feel like this matter is very important, so it's better to let everyone know. After Cloud Twilight finished speaking, he immediately added some explanation. I think it's credible. No one expected that the first to agree wasn't Yutian Shenming, but Gu Fei. Gu Fei obviously still remembered Drifting's actions in Dawn Fog City. That guy is very scheming. He didn't set us up, but he used us. Then he took advantage of us. This is his style. Right. I already knew that guy wasn't a good person. Yutian Shenming saw that he had Gu Fei's support, so he was full of confidence. His voice could be heard in half the tavern. He's not a good person, but he's not a bad person either, Han Family Young Master said. Didn't he help us a lot when we were in trouble before? Unscathed in Battle said. Good and evil, just playing for himself? That's free and easy. Brother, you concluded. Hey, is that guy that cool? Yutian Shenming was dissatisfied. No matter what, it's just speculation. Sword Demon was the same as always. He didn't immediately put a conclusion on Drifting. Yeah, I'm just reminding you. This guy isn't simple. Everyone, be careful. Cloud Twilight let out a long breath. Sword Demon's final decision was exactly what he wanted. If he immediately tried to find trouble with Drifting, it would just be speculation and Cloud Twilight would be under a lot of pressure. However, if he turned a deaf ear to it, Cloud Twilight would be a little unwilling. This was the best. Sword Demon had some confidence in himself, but he didn't say anything. Good. It looks like there won't be any more changes on Ying Qi's side. We don't need to inform everyone to reconcile. Let's just continue. Sword Demon went back to the main topic. Yin Zhongmu sighed. I'll have to explain this one more time. Sorry. Sword Demon had an apologetic expression. No need for that. But you won't change this time, right? Cloud Twilight half-jokingly said with lingering fear. Don't worry, I won't. Sword Demon definitely didn't want to change it again. Cloud Twilight took in a deep breath and sent a private message to Broken Cloud Pig Immortal and other core members of the 10 Guilds Alliance, telling them to inform everyone. These people naturally wouldn't run over to the super overpowered guild channel to make a ruckus. However, the leveling area was still in an uproar. No one could stand the constant ups and downs. Cloud Twilight didn't explain much, because they were already discussing how to deal with Ying Qi. Killing them won't solve the problem from the root. Drifting's plan might make us the scapegoat. What should we do? Unscathed in Battle muttered. We don't have to steal their goods. This plan will be a good deterrent for Ying Qi, Han Family Young Master said. Oh, what do you want to do? Brother, you asked on behalf of everyone. Everything will be the same. Act as Mudo, sneak into their warehouse, and open the portal. Han family young master said. Brother Yu nodded. A bunch of people suddenly rushing in will scare them to death. That's it. There's no real damage. Yutian Shinming, unscathed in battle, and Cloud Twilight all felt that it wasn't enough. I'm not against taking equipment. What about you guys? Can you accept it? Han family young master said. Gu Fei shook his head, Sword Demon shook his head, and Cloud Twilight nodded. Brother Yu and Yutian Shinming hesitated. Unscathed in battle said, take equipment? Wouldn't that ruin our reputation? Take it out and throw it all away. Han family young master said. What? Everyone was shocked. We don't want to use it ourselves or sell it for money. We just want to teach Qi a lesson. They plotted to kill our people, disrupt our game, and waste our time. If it's up to me, stealing their equipment isn't too much. But if we steal it, we won't use it ourselves or sell it for money. We'll just throw it away and let the system refresh it. Won't everyone feel better this way? Han family young master said. I don't think so. Throwing away so many high-quality equipment? I'm in so much pain. Unscathed in battle said. It's quite a pity. Cloud Twilight and his brothers had dropped quite a bit of equipment after the battle, and needed to replenish it. I think it's pretty cool. A lot of people will be dumbfounded. Yutian Shenming was a bit excited. Doing this won't shut people's mouths, right? There will always be people who suspect that we're just pretending to throw away some of the equipment. Brother Yu said. Who cares about them? As long as no one feels bad about it. Han family young master said calmly. If that's the case, then I think it's pretty good. Brother Yu stood on the side of the supporters. Let's throw it away. I'll be happy if we can teach Qi a lesson. Haha. Cloud Twilight didn't really care about the equipment. Haha, Drifting's wishful thinking will fail. He won't get anything and even wasted a scroll. Yutian Shinming laughed. Fuck, so that's what you're excited about. Everyone was speechless. No wonder Yutian Shinming was excited about throwing away all the equipment. He didn't want Drifting to be happy no matter what. What a huge grudge. His main goal was to mess up Drifting at all times. After the five expressed their opinions, they looked at Gu Fei and Sword Demon. The two of them had never supported the plan to steal the goods. How would they react to this plan that had changed its approach? You're right. Gu Fei seemed to be showing signs of relenting. Those guys caused trouble for us players. Some lost levels, and some went to jail. We suffered such a huge loss, but we can't even pay them back. That's a little ridiculous. I think it's not a bad idea to get their equipment and sell it to the players who suffered losses in this incident. Ah, that's good. Fuck, we can't just go to jail for nothing. Unscathed in battle was excited. Qianli was completely enlightened after getting drunk. Qianli, you're not just talking about us, right? There are many players involved in this incident. Sword Demon said. Of course, it's all because of them. Gu Fei nodded. Unscathed in battle was startled. You mean we have to pay for all the players who suffered losses? Yes. That's too troublesome. We can't calculate it. Forget it. Just throw it away. Han family young master sounded as if the equipment in Inga's warehouse was already in his pocket, and he could throw it away. Really? If there's no other way, we have to throw it away. Gu Fei shook his head and sighed. Let them pay for their losses. It's an equal exchange for our players' losses. Han family young master announced. This time, no one objected. The swift and decisive group of people immediately got to work. The first thing they had to do was, of course, inform Drifting. Without the scroll in his hand, they couldn't do anything. Drifting received the news quickly. When he entered the private room, he saw that Yin Zhongmu was also there. After glancing at him, he calmly sat in the empty seat left for him. Why can't we reconcile? Drifting sat down and asked. Hearing that, Drifting was surprised. What are you thinking about? I don't know. Anyway, we don't have any other choice, Sword Demon said. Then you guys mean? Make some losses for Inga, Han family young master said. How? Drifting asked. Just like you said. Han family young master said. Oh, here's the scroll. Drifting took out the scroll of the portal and put it on the table. We're going to throw away the equipment we made. When Han family young master said this, everyone looked at Drifting, especially Yutian Shenming. He hoped that Drifting's plan wouldn't work and would be disappointed. Drifting smiled and turned to Sword Demon. No wonder Sword Demon boss agreed. You're being fair. I just want to have a clear conscience, Sword Demon said indifferently. Have you found a candidate for Mudo Mudo? Drifting asked. Not yet. I want to play, but I can't. People from Eagle Group know me. Drifting said regretfully. Their professions don't match either, Han family young master said. Even though they might not know Mudo Mudo, they were famous people. If they had to interact face to face and their professions didn't match, it would be too ridiculous. Haha, it's a good job for you to play Mudo. Yutian Shenming didn't miss the chance to laugh. Mudo's profession was a sorcerer, but the problem was that she was a woman. It's a pity. Otherwise, that woman would be good to play Mudo. I remember she's an archer, right? Han family young master said. You mean she Xiaotian? Gu Fei asked. Han family young master nodded. We have to choose the right person. Otherwise, it'll all be ruined. Compared to a profession, it's hard to find someone who is trustworthy and can act well. Brother, you said. Are there any sorcerer girls on Reborn Amethyst's side? Han family young master asked Gu Fei. The first person Gu Fei thought of was Ice Glaze. That girl would blush after just a few words. She didn't look like a famous paparazzi in the online gaming world at all. Plus, that honest girl probably wasn't strong enough to lie and act. Gu Fei just thought of one. Yutian Shenming and Unscathed in Battle had evaluated all the sorcerer girls on Reborn Amethyst one by one. In the end, none of them were suitable. What about Strange Pupil? Unscathed in Battle's mind was always faster when it came to women. Chapter 863. The walls have ears. Why don't we go somewhere else? Brother, you suggested, seeing that the candidates were getting more and more obvious. These people were lacking in everything but a place. They went to a nearby building and closed the door. No one would be able to hear anything they said. Speaking of Strange Pupil, isn't Strange Pupil a little too famous? How do we know if the people from Eagle Party know her? Also, is Strange Pupil reliable? She doesn't seem to be that close to her. Brother, you suggested. Brother, you continued the conversation as soon as they returned to the stronghold. Are you familiar? The Han clan's young master asked Gu Fei. Why are you asking me? Gu Fei was surprised. You're wearing her ring, Han family young master said. The first thing Gu Fei did in the previous battle was to borrow Strange Pupil's mana ring. He still wore it on his finger. Everyone looked at Gu Fei's finger and nodded. Being able to borrow equipment in the game was proof that they were very familiar with each other. We don't need connections to borrow things, we need trust, understand? Gu Fei patted his chest. Just tell me if Strange Pupil will work or not. Han family young master was too lazy to waste time with him. Can't we just ask her? Gu Fei was about to send the message when young master Han said coldly. You better be able to confirm it yourself. Stop asking so many questions. Are you afraid that the news won't reach Ingqi's studio? What do you mean? Gu Fei was confused. If you really don't know Strange Pupil's background and interpersonal relationships, then forget it. What if she's friends with Eagle Party? Han family young master said. Gu Fei was stunned again. Strange Pupil knew Eagle Party. He suddenly felt that he could not ignore this possibility. This was because he remembered Strange Pupil's past. This woman had hired Jian Nanyu and the others to steal his Nightstream light sword. Perhaps her behavior had something to do with the Eagle Group, which was also selling her body. Isn't the Eagle Regiment mainly active in the southeast? How could it be related to our people? Yutian Shenming said. Be careful. The person must be absolutely reliable. You can't be careless about this. Han family young master said. Gu Fei could only shake his head. Other than this pair of magical power rings, I don't know anything else about her. Excluded. Han family young master decisively removed this candidate. Who else could it be? Everyone knocked their heads in thought. Old Yin, you don't have any female mage players? the Han family young master asked Yunjongmu. They were very overpowered, but there was no need to think about it. There were no women at all. Yunjongmu and his group had more than 100 people, and there were some female players among them. Yunjongmu had a troubled expression on his face. We have some sisters with us. They won't drag us down if we drag them to kill people, but we have to be educated to be reporters. It's not suitable, right? When the others heard this, they all sighed. Every place had its own people. The female players of Moonlit Night City had all been raised to be fierce bandits. No one has a candidate? Han family young master swept his gaze around. The conditions are a bit harsh. Everyone was in pain. There were very few female players in the game. Now that they had to be absolutely reliable and restricted to mages, they had to be good at acting. The difficulty was like finding a needle in a haystack without a needle. Why don't we just ask Duo Mumu for help? Just act as you are. Do we even need to trick them? Yutian Shiming suddenly had an idea and said excitedly. He felt that his idea was too brilliant. Are you out of your mind? Would Duo Mumu be stupid enough to ruin his own reputation? Han family young master scolded. Wait a minute. Gu Fei suddenly had an idea. Everyone looked over. Gu Fei looked around. In the online gaming circle, don't tell me there are only these two reporters? Everyone was startled and instantly understood Gu Fei's idea. Brother Yu slapped his thigh. That's right. Why do we have to hang on to one tree? They aren't the only online reporters. As he said this, Brother Yu started flipping through his information book. Everyone expressed their respect. Brother Yu, you even recorded this in the game? It's nothing, Brother Yu replied casually and immersed himself in the joy of searching. His face was full of happiness. Drifting watched from the side and felt a myriad of emotions. If he knew how to enjoy this kind of joy, he wouldn't have thought of dying in the information room. Duo Mumu Duo is a professional reporter for fun gaming website. Most professional gaming websites have professional reporters. For example, 52 gaming website, Good Mood, the more you play the happier you get. These websites definitely have them, Brother Yu said as he searched. No one dared to disturb him. They looked at Brother Yu with sincerity. Haha. Brother Yu flipped to the relevant page, and immediately found it. 52 gaming websites watching the paddy fields. This is also a famous reporter. Everyone should know about it, right? Of course, it's not as famous as Duo Mumu Duo. Everyone nodded except for Gu Fei. There's also Good Mood, the more you play, the happier you get. These are the representatives of various websites. There are also people from other websites like Kung Pao Chicken, Uncle Mutong, same yesterday. What do you think? Brother Yu looked at everyone. Tell me about everyone. Are they all in a group like Mudo and Mudo? Asked the young master of the Han family. That's not it. These are all from the same person. Gender, profession, and even the best level, Han family young master said. Watching the paddy fields, male archer, Good Mood female archer, here's you get. Male bandit, Kung Pao Chicken female bandit, Uncle Mutong male archer, same yesterday female bandit. Brother Yu said a bunch of things in one breath. At the end he explained, these people's information is a bit older. Their levels are all old. Why are their professions either archer or bandit? Yutian Shunming noticed this pattern. Probably because it's convenient to travel. Brother Yu guessed. Bandits can also sneak around. Unscathed in battle said. Everyone nodded their heads. Paparazzi. Then why isn't Mudwa one? Before Yutian Shunming could ask, he was pushed to the side by Han family young master. Then he looked at Gu Fei and asked, can she Xiaotian come? Do you think she's absolutely reliable? Gu Fei said. Do you have prejudice against her? Han family young master asked. Nonsense. She's a liar, Gu Fei said. What I want is a liar. Han family young master nodded his head. I can't guarantee who I'm tricking, Gu Fei said. If it's someone else, it's hard to say whether or not they'll be tricked. At least there's a technical guarantee, Han family young master said. If she's online, should I call her? Gu Fei asked. I've already called her. Yutian Shunming was quite proactive. Gu Fei couldn't do anything but sigh. If she's a female archer, then she'll be able to eat and drink well. Then I'll go get more information on her. Brother, you said. Go. Han family young master nodded his head. He was contacting Cloud Tung Studio. He hoped to get some information on the studio's circle. For example, did their circle have any contact with online game journalists? Did they have any regular customers? If delicious drinks had something to do with Ying Qi's studio, then it would be exposed. This kind of thing was not a secret. Yin Tung had more than 10 directors who used to work for Ying Qi, and Wu Yi was one of the 3 bosses of Yin Tung. It was easy for the young master of the Han family to understand the situation. Ying Qi's people would definitely not know this rich and powerful person. At this point, young Master Han seemed to have thought of something and quickly sent a message to Brother Yu, who was still on his way to the offline zone. If possible, confirm if delicious drink and spicy drinks knows someone from Eagle Group. Oh, I'll try. Brother Yu wasn't good at PK, but he had his own abilities in this area. However, Brother Yu still needed some time to do this. At this moment, there was a knock on the door. Yu Tianxunming happily ran to open the door. Accompanied by a goosebumps-raising Sister Tian, Shi Xiaotian was led in. It's quite lively here. Everyone in the room had more or less interacted with each other. Shi Xiaotian casually greeted them and walked towards Gu Fei, Sword Demon, and Han family young master. She clearly knew where the center of power was. What's the matter? Say it. This was not a tavern, so there were a limited number of stools. There were only 3 in the room. Those who fought for a seat first would get it, and those who didn't had to stand. Most of them were reserved, unlike Yu Tianxunming, an unscathed in battle who shamelessly fought for a seat. The 2 of them took a seat each, and the rest were polite to each other. In the end, Han family young master sat down without any hesitation. Yu Tianxunming went to open the door, and the bench was empty. The others continued to be reserved and didn't sit down. Shi Xiaotian came over, and Yu Tianxunming politely invited her to his empty seat. Unscathed in battle followed and fought for his seat. Shi Xiaotian asked, "What's the matter?" The 2 of them started arguing for a long time. The scene lasted until Gu Fei pulled out his sword, and the 2 of them instantly quieted down. They stood there obediently and didn't move. One old and one young, made people not know whether to laugh or to be angry. The young master of the Han family was the only one sitting there, but he did not feel uncomfortable at all. Without waiting for Shi Xiaotian to ask, he told him their plan. "Oh, that's a good plan. Did you think of it?" Shi Xiaotian asked. "Drifting's idea." Han family young master didn't want to take credit. "Where is the scroll?" "Let me see," said Shi Xiaotian. Drifting handed it to Shi Xiaotian. Shi Xiaotian opened it and read the instructions. Then he asked, "Are you sure it can be used in your personal space?" "I only have this one, so I haven't tested it." Drifting smiled bitterly. "But I think the principle of this thing is the same as the teleportation scroll. As long as you have the authority to the house, you can use the teleportation scroll. There's no doubt about that." Shi Xiaotian nodded and then asked, "Who is the person I'm going to pretend to be?" "Games are good for your mood. Do you know that?" said Han family young master. "Yes, a reporter." "Are you sure you don't know him?" asked Shi Xiaotian. "Half of it. I'm working on the other half," said Han family young master. "How do I get in touch with him?" "Through a person in charge of Ying Qi's studio in the main city," said Han family young master. "One of our own." "No. Through him, you can get in touch with Ying Qi's boss. As for how to act as a reporter, you have to rely on yourself," said Han family young master. "Oh," Shi Xiaotian answered and then said, "Then I need to do some homework." "Oh. Study the cases of the studio being interviewed and reported," said Shi Xiaotian. "Professional. I'll keep in touch." Shi Xiaotian left. Chapter 864. There were a bunch of experts left in the room. They looked at each other and finally looked at young Master Han. "We're done here, right? Getting Ying Qi's trust and sneaking into their warehouse is only the first step. The second step is equally important," Han family young master said. "What's the second step?" Everyone asked. How to move the goods out of Ying Qi's warehouse in the shortest time possible, Han family young master said. That's easy. Go in and put them in our pockets. Unscathed in battle said. It's not that simple, Drifting shook his head. We don't have much time to do this. If they find something strange, they'll immediately remove the access. How many of us can get in such a short time? How much time do we have to store things? What kind of obstacles will we face? We need to think about all of these. Wait. Sword Demon, who hadn't spoken a word, suddenly stopped everyone. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. Could it be that the Sword Ghost was going to call a halt to the plan again? Sword Demon said. Did you guys forget about a problem? When we open the warehouse to the players, we'll see the players' names. How can Shi Xiaotian pretend to be eating hot drinks? Everyone was startled when they heard that. Even young Master Han furrowed his brows. This was such an obvious loophole, but they had really overlooked it just now. Or maybe eating hot drinks is just a pseudonym for the article. He doesn't use this idea in the game? Drifting said. If that's the case, brother, you wouldn't have kept it a secret. Han family young master shook his head. He looked at his friends' list. Brother, you had already gone offline. I hope Ying Qi and Eagle Group don't know about this? Unscathed in battle said. That's hard to guarantee. Han family young master sighed. From Yin Tung, he had confirmed that Ying Qi and eating hot drinks had nothing to do with each other. But whether or not they knew about eating hot drinks in the game was another matter. What should we do? Everyone asked each other. Call that woman back first. Han family young master said. Yu Tian Shenming eagerly sent another message. After a while he said in a daze, Sister Xiaotian said that she has already considered this problem. She doesn't intend to pretend to be rich and powerful. She said that she has her own ways. If we don't understand, we shouldn't get involved. A room full of experts was despised. Gu Fei was very angry. You're just a liar, yet you're still so arrogant. Don't talk about being arrogant, the Han family young master said calmly. Everyone in this house is arrogant. The people in the room looked at each other and nodded. Indeed, this room was full of arrogant bulls. Since she said that we don't need to worry about it, let's ignore it. Let's continue to study the second stage. I mean, we can do a drill in the second stage, said the Han family young master. A drill? Everyone's eyes widened. Yes, it's a drill. The Han family young master nodded solemnly. Just tell us what to do. Yin Zhongmu liked to be direct. Let's go buy some stuff first and make this place look like a warehouse. The Han family young master said as he stood up. In the end, the plan was very heaven-defying. It was divided into 3 groups. Brother Yu went to collect more information. Shi Xiaotian went to prepare for her deception. And the rest of them practiced how to be efficient movers. The group of experts first went to the trading street and bought a lot of cheap trash. This kind of trash was hard to get when it was really needed. There were a lot of it in the system store, but the price was very shameless. The rich players didn't pick up this kind of stuff. Those who did would sell it to the system store to earn some pocket money. If they put it up in the auction house, it would be like giving the system a free service fee. Only true noobs would set up stalls on the business street. Only noobs would think that these things could be sold for money. But today, these garbage stalls, which had always been despised by people, were swept clean by a group of well-equipped fellows. The trading street immediately boiled over. Many unscrupulous peddlers thought that some rich fools had come, so they took out their treasures and prepared to make a killing. A group of people fought to be the first to find out where these idiots went and chased after them like a swarm of bees. The ones in the lead were obviously the agility professions. At this moment, the players who became warriors, mages, and priests were filled with regret. But they didn't give up and continued to chase until they saw the agility players who were one step ahead. They all looked as if they had been hit by frost, standing listlessly on the side of the road. What's going on? The trading street was also considered a circle. Those who mingled here often knew each other, and were also familiar with each other. Seeing these guys' strange expressions, the players who arrived later couldn't help but go up and ask, "Damn, the guy who cleans the trash is a very heaven-defying person." One person said, "Very heaven-defying?" Another person was surprised. Right now in Cloud City, there wasn't a guild with a name more resounding than Very Heaven-Defying. Although these players didn't know any Very Heaven-Defying people, one thing was for sure, Very Heaven-Defying people weren't idiots with a lot of money. I saw Qianli drunk, so scary. One person tightly gripped a staff in his hand and said with lingering fear. This staff was the treasure that he was going to use to sell. When he saw the mage in the other party's group, he went up to stop them. When he got close, he discovered that the other party was wearing a black robe and had a purple sword. He didn't dare say a word and just turned around and left. Recommend a weapon to Qianli drunk? That would be a foolish act. The night streamer's stats had already been exposed. Currently in the game, there wasn't a magic weapon with higher damage than this sword. And it was said that the only weapon with higher damage than this sword was the Thin Waist Dance Dagger Wind Dance. These experts, why did they come here to pick up trash? The group of players was very confused, but in the end, they didn't chase after them. The small interlude created by this group of reckless players didn't affect the mood of the experts. Everyone took a bag of trash back to the stronghold and dumped it on the ground. But this still seemed to be a small amount. If Inga Workshop only had this much trash, then they wouldn't be able to call themselves the industry leader. Isn't it a bit hard to fill up this room? Yutian Shenming saw that everyone's bags were empty. Unexpectedly, they only had this much trash. He couldn't help but say this. The street has already been swept clean. What do we do? My bag isn't even full yet. Unscathed in Battle said. In this parallel world, everyone's bag capacity wasn't fixed. It depended on the character's weight. Just make do and put on a show, right? Yutian Shenming said, but when he saw everyone coldly staring at him, he immediately lowered his head and pretended not to say anything. If we don't take it seriously, then what's the point of practicing? Han Family Young Master said. Let's mobilize the crowd. Have everyone go to the low-level leveling area and get some trash. Cloud Twilight said. Let's do it ourselves. The more people there are, the easier it will be for information to leak. Han Family Young Master said. My brother is definitely reliable. Cloud Twilight said without hesitation. If there are too many people moving, then it'll attract attention. Han Family Young Master said. If that's the case, then we need to be more vigilant. Since Inga Workshop isn't willing to give up, he might have already sent people over to observe our movements. Cloud Twilight said. That's true. Everyone nodded. Han Family Young Master pulled out a scroll and marked the coordinates as he said. Then let's use the scroll to go back and forth. It'll save us some time. The group of people immediately went to the low-level leveling area. Parallel world players couldn't open a Smurf account, so as the game continued, the low-level leveling areas became fewer and fewer. With such a group of experts appearing here, it was quite domineering. In just a short moment, everyone's bags were full. Then they would throw the scrolls back into the room and come back to farm again. After going back and forth a few times, the items in the room were finally stacked up high, and it looked like a warehouse. The equipment that couldn't be stacked were the main ones. The miscellaneous materials that could be stacked were also arranged neatly. All right, we just need to fill up one room. We'll probably gather the materials as soon as we come out of the teleportation door. We won't have time to move to another room. Han Family Young Master said. What's the drill? Yutian Shenming asked. Sword Demon, remove everyone's permissions first. Han Family Young Master said. Sword Demon was a very OP guild leader, so he had the highest permissions for property. It was just like how he had the highest permissions in the guild chat. The guild's property was initially open to all guild members, but the guild leader had the right to change it. At this moment, after Sword Demon removed all permissions, everyone was automatically teleported out of the room. Sword Demon also walked out. These are the scrolls I made for the room. Han Family Young Master took out 2 scrolls. There were a total of 7 people here. 1 scroll wouldn't be enough to fly out. Sword Demon, pretend to be one of Ing Chi's people. We'll form a team and you give us team permissions. You wait in the room. We'll fly directly into the room. Once you notice something, immediately remove the permissions. We'll observe the situation first. Han family young master arranged everyone's scenes. TSK, even a drill would waste 2 scrolls. Unscathed in battle shook his head and sighed. Sword Demon had already set up the permissions and entered the room. The 6 people outside held 2 scrolls and waited for Han family young master to speak. Wait a moment, let's catch them off guard. Han family young master said. After standing there stupidly for about 5 minutes, Han family young master nodded. The person holding the scroll immediately used the scroll, and the teleportation circle opened. However, the white light faded and the teleportation failed. The system indicated that the teleportation coordinates were invalid. Everyone was startled. Sword Demon had already pushed open the door and walked out, looking at them helplessly. You removed the permissions? Everyone asked. Sword Demon nodded. You didn't just open the interface and wait for it, right? Of course not. You're too fast. Of course I did it as fast as possible. Sword Demon said. Everyone looked towards Han family young master. In theory, Ingqi's people wouldn't have the mental preparation like Sword Demon, so they would be a bit slower in their reactions. How far did the teleportation go? Han family young master asked Sword Demon, who was teleporting to the destination. I didn't pay much attention. Sword Demon was focused on removing the permissions and didn't have time to observe the changes in the teleportation circle. There's no point in calculating the time. We won't be using the teleportation circle. Han family young master shook his head. Have you used this teleportation circle before? Sword Demon asked Drifting. Drifting shook his head. I don't know if there's one on the market. It would be best if we could get one and see the effect. Han family young master said. I haven't seen it before. Drifting said. Let me see if Cloud Soaring has any ideas. Han family young master said. The studio was much more resourceful than the players. Nitrite understood that Han family young master must be thinking of ways to trick Ingqi. Although he was busy with the leveling process, Han family young master didn't hesitate to ask for help. When he heard that they needed a scroll, he didn't ask much and immediately sent someone to inquire. How is it? Everyone was waiting for the news from Han family young master. I don't know yet. He went to inquire. Han family young master said. It's necessary to use the teleportation scroll to test it out. The teleportation scroll can teleport 4 people at once. Who knows what the effect of this teleportation circle is? If we have to queue up and enter one by one, I think we should cancel this plan. It was rare for Zhang Wushang to be serious, and what he said made a lot of sense. Even young Master Han couldn't find any reason to despise him. According to the effect of the teleportation circle, we can determine how many people will be sent out. Sword Demon nodded and said, but don't just sit around. If you have nothing to do, practice loading things. Load as much as you can. Practice. Han family young master shouted. Time ticked by, and a bunch of famous experts stayed in their rooms, practicing this thing. There was no news from Brother Yu, Shi Xiaotian and Nitrite Radical. Brother Yu and Shi Xiaotian weren't online at all. Han family young master asked about Nitrite Radical. Nitrite Radical said that he was already doing his best. He confirmed that his studio didn't have it, and was currently asking around in the circle. Be careful. This was Han family young master's warning. I understand. This was Nitrite Radical's reply. The two of them continued to communicate tacitly. It was impossible to tell what they were talking about. No one would have thought that the day would pass just like that. For the entire night, even Gu Fei didn't have the nerve to go offline. He shared the joys and sorrows with everyone else in the room, training hard and snatching equipment. It wasn't just the original 7 people who were training together. Because the effect of the teleportation circle was unknown. What if 10 or 20 people could enter at once? With this assumption as the premise, Yin Zhongmu called a few of his brothers over to carry out simulation training together. As for Brother Yu, Shi Xiaotian and Nitrite Radical, they didn't move even when the sky turned bright. Let's rest first. There might be news when we wake up. Everyone went to the resurrection point, said goodbye to each other, and went offline. That night, they simulated several possible scenarios that could happen after the teleportation was successful, and conducted targeted training. The results were quite satisfactory. Many people felt that it was a pity to only do this once after training so hard. It would be best if they could do it 8 or 10 times to make up for their hard work. In the afternoon, the first person to come online was Sword Demon. When it came to something that he had decided to do, Sword Demon would immediately become the most serious and attentive one. As soon as he came online, Brother Yu immediately sent a message. "Where are you? Why isn't anyone here at this time?" It was already 3:30 in the afternoon. For these people who ate, drank, and slept all day in the game, it was unusual for them not to come out at this time. Everyone's normal routine was to wake up at noon, eat lunch as breakfast, and then start the day's game. Sometimes, they slept late in the morning and went online late. But at this time, everyone was still not here at 3 o'clock. This was very unusual. "Last night, we played quite late. Maybe they're still resting." Sword Demon replied to Brother Yu. "How are things on your side? I've looked through many channels, and I'm 100% sure that eating hot drinks and Eagle Group have nothing to do with each other. They definitely don't know each other. Those who have dealt with eating hot drinks face to face all say that she's a pretty woman. That Shi Xiaotian is also a good match. However, eating hot drinks level isn't high. She's only level 39 and hasn't changed classes yet." Brother Yu said. The situation has changed. Shi Xiaotian's side said that they won't pretend to be eating hot drinks. Sword Demon suddenly realized that they should have informed Brother Yu about this change. Brother Yu was still preparing for eating hot drinks. Wasn't this a wasted night? Why? This news really surprised Brother Yu. Sword Demon explained the reason. Brother Yu focused on the big picture and didn't lose his temper over his wasted effort. Instead, he asked with concern, "What does she plan to do?" "We're not sure. Yesterday, she didn't see anyone for the whole night, just like you." Sword Demon and Brother Yu first chatted, and then met up at the guild stronghold. It wasn't until 5:30 that the group gathered again, but Shi Xiaotian was still not online. But there was also good news. When the Han family young master came, he swung his hand on the table. Everyone looked at it. Portal scroll. The power of the studio was indeed extraordinary. They weren't afraid that he couldn't get it. They were afraid that it didn't exist in the game. This portal scroll confirmed that it existed. After a lot of hard work, Nitrite really found it. After all, the game was so big. There were tens of millions of players in 100 main cities. A mere portal scroll didn't need to be hidden so mysteriously like top-grade equipment. Even so, everyone still carefully confirmed that this scroll was the same version as the one Drifting had. Then it was time to put it into practice. Since the person who would use the scroll would be Shi Xiaotian, they finally decided that this exercise should help Shi Xiaotian familiarize himself with it. After dinner, Shi Xiaotian finally appeared. Everyone let out a sigh of relief. Waiting for someone was also quite a torturous thing. "How's the preparation?" Everyone didn't have the energy to talk nonsense. When they saw Shi Xiaotian, they directly asked, "Brother Yu, what did you find on your side?" Shi Xiaotian first asked Brother Yu. "Me? I have information about eating and drinking, but I can't pretend to be her anymore, right?" Brother Yu said, "I can't directly pretend to be any reporter. I can only be myself, but my identity will also be a reporter for a game website." Shi Xiaotian said, "That makes it even more difficult." Han family young master said, "So I still need one more night to prepare." Shi Xiaotian said, "What exactly are you planning? Can you let us know?" Gu Fei was always wary of Shi Xiaotian. "You can come with me," Shi Xiaotian said. Chapter 865. Gu Fei hesitated for a moment, but Yutian Shenming and Unscathed in Battle had already stood up. They enjoyed doing things with beautiful women, no matter what they did. The two of them stopped Gu Fei. Qianli, there's no need to trouble you with this kind of small matter. Killing and robbing are your arts. You can stay and practice. You two go to the side." Gu Fei was infuriated. If Shi Xiaotian was here to deceive everyone in the room, these two fellows would undoubtedly be the easiest to fall for. If he were to smile at them, they would probably lose their consciousness. If he asked them to follow Shi Xiaotian, it would be the same as not following him at all. I'll go take a look. Gu Fei turned around and told everyone before following Shi Xiaotian. Yutian Shunming and Unscathed in Battle tried to follow them, but with Gu Fei between them, the two felt that it would be pointless. Thus, they tactfully stayed behind. Where are we going? Gu Fei asked Shi Xiaotian. To pick up some custom-made items. Shi Xiaotian said. What items? Scamming equipment. Shi Xiaotian smiled. Did I disgust you again? Gu Fei was speechless. How should he put it? This was a skill that he looked down on, but at this time, they needed to use this skill. He couldn't help but think of that unbearably vulgar saying. Whether a gun was good or bad depended on who held it in their hands. But this time, was it good or bad? Gu Fei couldn't say for sure. He only understood one thing. It was Ying Qi who caused trouble for everyone. There was no place for reasoning in the game. This kind of thing could only be solved by themselves. Honestly speaking, Gu Fei liked this method. If it was just a simple PK, then it would be perfect. But this time, it was an opponent that couldn't be of much use in PK. This made Gu Fei feel helpless. On the other hand, Shi Xiaotian was like a fish in water in such a situation. Gu Fei's displeasure rose by several levels. Let's go. Gu Fei ignored Shi Xiaotian and urged her to hurry up. Aren't we walking? Shi Xiaotian muttered as she led Gu Fei through the streets of Cloud City. Soon, they arrived at the old district of Cloud City. As its name suggested, the old city district was dilapidated and old. The NPCs who moved about here were all scantily clad, looking like refugees who had been stranded in this place. The scenery here was ugly, and the people here were ugly. It was the most desolate and lifeless area in Cloud City. Unless they were forced by a quest, no one would come here. Gu Fei, who had gone through all the streets of Cloud City, had never been here before. He looked at the scene in surprise. It was completely different from his impression of Cloud City. He almost suspected that he and Shi Xiaotian used a teleportation scroll to change places. Where is this? Gu Fei couldn't help but ask. Broken District. You've never been here before? The old district was called the Broken District by Cloud City players. No. Gu Fei looked around. Then it can only mean that you've never done quests in the game. Shi Xiaotian said. Although no one liked to come to the old district, there were still a few quests with generous rewards that would send players to this place. Unexpectedly, he hadn't done any of these quests. There were only two possibilities for a player over level 40. First, he wasn't a player from Cloud City. Second, he was a drunk Qianli. This was the first time Gu Fei returned to the old district. He was somewhat curious. Not only were the houses broken, but there was also a foul smell in the air from time to time. The NPCs here were also disgusting. People wouldn't feel the slightest bit of pity for them living in such a harsh environment. One had to know that there were many sad NPCs in the game that made people cry. It was because they were all fake that they were designed to be pitiful and emotional. Wouldn't they feel anything if they knew they were fake? Then the TV and movies wouldn't trick people into laughing and crying. However, the old district wasn't such a place. This place seemed to be designed to make people feel disgusted. It really wasn't a place that would make people feel the slightest bit of joy. What are we doing here? Gu Fei was curious. Like any other player, he didn't have a good impression of this place. To find someone. Shi Xiaotian said. Someone or an NPC? Gu Fei needed to confirm. He didn't think that anyone would be willing to meet someone in this kind of place. People. In the end, Shi Xiaotian's answer surprised Gu Fei. Gu Fei didn't waste any more time and followed behind Shi Xiaotian. They arrived at a dilapidated courtyard where the walls were already burnt black. Shi Xiaotian seemed to be very familiar with the place. He walked directly to a part of the wall that was missing a tooth, stood on tiptoe, and poked his head in. Bam bam, I'm here. Are you there? Yes. A reply came from the courtyard. Shi Xiaotian jumped back and continued to walk to the side. There was a hole in the wall in front of them. A person stood out and waved at Shi Xiaotian. Han bang bang. Shi Xiaotian walked up and introduced the person to Gu Fei. Hello. Gu Fei nodded. Do you recognize me? Shi Xiaotian asked Han bang bang with a smile. Qianli drunk? Han Bangbang looked at Gu Fei, a black-cloaked mage, and Shi Xiaotian intentionally asked this question. Obviously, he was a famous person. A famous black-cloaked mage would be an idiot if he didn't guess Qianli drunk. Come in. Han Bangbang led the two into the courtyard. Where is this? Gu Fei was confused. Could this courtyard be considered a property? Did it belong to Han Bangbang? A place like this should be the cheapest in Cloud City, right? The houses in the city are too expensive. We can't afford it, so we can only stay in this place. It's pretty secluded. Boss Qianli, please don't tell anyone about me. The last sentence was obviously a joke. It was obvious that he trusted Shi Xiaotian very much. Thus, he began to trust the people Shi Xiaotian brought with him. Love me, love my dog, love my dog. Gu Fei immediately saw the yard full of junk after entering the courtyard. There were wood shavings, paper scraps, and all kinds of strange materials that Gu Fei didn't recognize. Han Bangbang went straight to a huge rock. The rock was about half the height of a person. It was very flat, and there were a lot of things on it. It looked like a table. Halfway there, she seemed to have suddenly thought of something, and she turned around and said, Boss Qianli, I've heard about your night streak for a long time. I wonder if you can show it to me? Sure. Gu Fei took out the night streamer from his pocket. After taking a look at the map, Han Pudding ran over to a pile of broken wood and rummaged through it a few times. She then ran back to Gu Fei's side. She held something in her hand and compared it to the night streamer sword. She shook her head and said, Damn it, I knew those drawings weren't reliable. The difference is too big. The dimensions aren't right. Gu Fei almost fainted when he saw it. Han Bangbang was holding a wooden sword, but it was obviously modeled after his night streamer. It was also colored. At first glance, Gu Fei was a little confused. However, after taking a closer look, he noticed that there were obvious differences in the size of the two swords. This was especially true for the night stream sword, which was an exquisite piece of equipment. Han Pudong's wooden sword didn't have a single bit of that glow. Han Bangbang also noticed the problem. He touched the night streamer and said, Ah, is this the unique glow of a top-tier equipment? This is the first time I've seen such a dark purple color. This is really a challenge. What do you do? Gu Fei was more or less aware, but he still couldn't help but ask. Han Putuan did not answer. He continued to study the night streamer in Gu Fei's hand until Gu Fei put the sword back into his pocket. Han Putuan finally withdrew his gaze, but he did not answer Gu Fei's question. Instead, he quickly took out a small notebook from his pocket and began to write on it while muttering to himself. At that moment, Gu Fei really thought he had been possessed by Brother Yu. Who is he? Gu Fei turned to look at Shi Xiaotian. It's just as you thought, a counterfeit, Shi Xiaotian said. Fuck. Gu Fei couldn't help but blurt out. As a teacher, he normally tried to avoid saying these kinds of words. As he spoke, he walked around and discovered that Han Putuan's skills were quite extraordinary. There were quite a few of his creations buried in the trash around him. The equipment made out of wood actually looked like top-tier equipment with a layer of glow on it. Players who were familiar with top-tier equipment would be able to tell the difference if they looked closely. However, Gu Fei could not understand how this effect could be artificially created. After Han Putuan finished writing in his notebook, he moved to Gu Fei's side and said, Boss Qianli, I heard that you have a wanted license? Can you? No. Gu Fei's face darkened. Gu Fei had unintentionally become an accomplice to the counterfeits. He really wanted to chop this guy up. However, when he thought about it, Han Putuan's craftsmanship and level probably had nothing to do with it. So what if he killed him? Destroy his counterfeit workshop? This thought popped into Gu Fei's mind again. It was obvious that Han Putuan needed to be discreet, but he couldn't afford a private house in the game, so he could only hide in a rundown courtyard in the old city. When Gu Fei arrived, he didn't see a single NPC around. Even players who were doing quests wouldn't set foot here, so he made this place look like his private house. Don't think too much about it. At this time, Shi Xiaotian finally came over and said, Peng Peng is just a craftsman. His products are mainly for the sake of people like us. We're the ones who take them to the market to cheat. It has nothing to do with him. It's not a problem for him to make equipment out of wood, is it? This. Gu Fei was speechless for a moment. He didn't know what to say to this counterfeit enthusiast in front of him. Humans love to make knockoffs, and in the end, knockoffs were used by others to cheat others. This was another messy account. Everyone was responsible, but it was impossible to stop it. Even if the counterfeit workshop was exposed, it wouldn't stop Han Putuan from going back to his old business. Moreover, this guy seemed to be highly valued by the scammers. If he was forced into a corner, the scammers would jointly invest in a property for him. What could they do then? Game simulation caused problems in all aspects. That Yi Xiaowu always complained that his kung fu destroyed the balance, but what about this craftsman? The Night Streak sword made from a piece of wood was almost as good as the real thing. What about this craftsman? Of course, at least he couldn't make the stats of the equipment in the game. If the buyer really wanted to appraise it seriously, he wouldn't be fooled. It all depended on the skills of the scammers like Shi Xiaotian. Aren't you afraid that I'll expose your tricks by bringing me to a place like this? Gu Fei glared at Shi Xiaotian. Expose? Do you really not know, or are you just pretending to not know? This kind of scam is already at the granddaddy level. In the online gaming circle, it's been around since the birth of online games. Be careful and make sure when you make a transaction. Is this the kind of reminder you give when you expose your tricks? What a pity. This kind of reminder has been around for who knows how many years, but there are still people who fall for it. Even in the parallel world, this kind of thing has long been exposed, but what happened in the end? Putuan's business is even better. Exposing scams sometimes turns into teaching material for scams. Isn't that embarrassing? Said Shi Xiaotian. Gu Fei had to admit that Shi Xiaotian's words made sense. Since someone was doing this kind of shady business, they must have exposed it before, but Han Putuan was still doing very well, and seemed to be as busy as ever. It was obvious that the exposure didn't put an end to it at all. Perhaps this problem could only be solved by the intervention of the game developers, and completely removing people like Han Putuan from the game. But Gu Fei looked at Han Putuan. Han Putuan was holding the notes he had taken after looking at Gu Fei's Night Streak sword. He was currently holding his counterfeit sword and pondering over it. From time to time, a confused expression would appear on his face. But no matter what, the concentration on his face made it easy to see how much he enjoyed it. Was he scamming people? No, he wasn't. He liked to make these kinds of imitations, but these kinds of imitations were useless. Which player in the game would be willing to buy such an imitation for their collection? In the end, his talent was discovered by scammers with bad intentions. Suddenly, Gu Fei felt a wave of sorrow, the sorrow of learning something useless. This sorrow was very familiar. He just wanted to have an environment where he could practice his martial arts. But Han Bianduan probably wanted to be appreciated by others for the things he loved, right? Did he really need to destroy it? Although Gu Fei repeatedly warned himself that it was completely different from whether what he did was right or wrong, when he saw Han Putuan's focused eyes, Gu Fei avoided it and even restrained himself. When he saw Han Putuan's puzzled expression, he even had the urge to lend the Night Streak sword to Han Putuan, so that he could take a good look at it. Gu Fei even thought of himself. He used his kung fu without restraint in the game. Although he tried his best to limit it to the wanted quest mode, his skills in city battles and mercenary group battles also caused a lot of trouble for others. Although there were no losses when players died in those modes, to be more precise, they would not lose levels or equipment in normal PvP environments. In a competition like that, they would lose points if they died. They would lose the chance to win the competition. How could that not be a loss? Was there any difference between the effects he caused and the scammers who used Han Putuan's products to deceive people? Han Putuan relied on her craftsmanship to create a scam industry, while Han Fei relied on his martial arts to determine the outcome of a battle. In fact, most of the players who were defeated because of him weren't hateful people. Most of them were just ordinary players who weren't much different from his friends. There was no good or evil in this world. Everyone was the same. It was just a game. Hey, what are you thinking about? Shi Xiaotian went to get Han Putuan's things after he finished speaking. When he turned around, Gu Fei was still in a daze. Nothing, just something on my mind. Gu Fei said. Even violent flying has something on his mind? Shi Xiaotian asked. Who doesn't? Gu Fei said. What's on your mind? Just because it's a game, you can do whatever you want. That's too simple. Gu Fei said. I know. That's why you can't do whatever you want. You want to PK, but you've always been doing wanted quests, right? Shi Xiaotian said. If only that was the case. But I've been involved in too many battles. Maybe I'm indeed a spoiler. Gu Fei said. What do you mean by also? Shi Xiaotian said. Aren't you? Gu Fei asked. Fine. Me too. I'm much worse than you. Shi Xiaotian said. Of course. I hope you can be modest. Shi Xiaotian said. I don't need to be modest in front of the truth. Violent flying. Liar God. They looked at each other and walked closer to each other. Slowly. You're wrong. That's not true. Ahem, that's not true. When do I come to get the things? Shi Xiaotian turned around and asked Han Putuan. About 4 hours. Han Putuan said. Okay, I'll come back in 4 hours. Shi Xiaotian said, indicating that Gu Fei could leave. What do you want from him? Gu Fei asked. Reporter's ID. Shi Xiaotian said. What? Reporter's ID. You've been interviewed by Duo Mamuduo. It seems like they didn't show it to you. I've found out that all the reporters stationed in the game have reporter's ID. Moreover, this thing is created by the game system and has a serial number. It's very useful. In some special times, you can even use it to apply for PK protection. It's just that if they're interviewing private players like you, they won't be too wary, so they don't need to show their ID to prove their identity. That's why many players don't know about this. But in reality, this is the only proof of being an online reporter from a parallel world. As a studio, Ingqi should know about the existence of a reporter's ID. Moreover, they wouldn't overlook this detail that normal players wouldn't care about. It's easy to fool them with a reporter's ID. Shi Xiaotian said. It can't be? Since it's something given by the system, it'll be easy to see through it if you look carefully. Gu Fei said. At the very least, we should first see the effects of a real reporter's ID before making a conclusion. Shi Xiaotian said. Where are we going to find one? Please, can't you just borrow Duo Mamuduo's ID to take a look? Shi Xiaotian said. But what's the use of this? Gu Fei didn't understand. It won't be long before you understand. Shi Xiaotian smiled. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.